Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for November 2024. We're going to be doing the Week 12 NFL picks against the spread for the 2024 NFL season. Before we intro our co-hosts tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As always, I am wearing one of the shirts. It just says Ken Griffin, hashtag Ken Griffin lied. And I can't get sued for that because there are a lot of Ken Griffins out there. So I didn't say which specific one, but you can find all these shirts here, 20% off sale still. So I think a great deal, $16 to $19 for a shirt. Butter costs $7.50 at grocery store. This is a little bit more than double. So I think it's worth it. Like, these shirts will last forever. We have a new shirt, Squirrel Lives Matter. I love this logo here, especially with the raccoon in the background. So yeah, you can get all that at the WalterFootball.com merch store. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. Those help out so much because YouTube ads pay almost nothing. Slew, John Sanders, K Make an Eagle. You guys have been so great recently with your contributions. We've had many others in the past as well, but you guys especially have been so helpful recently. So any further contributions would really keep the show going. Also, please consider going to Amazon, buying my books. I have 3 books out there. The most recent one, Jerks of the College Years, where I made fun of people at Penn State. I went there for 6 years. So as you can imagine, I had a lot of writing material, as you can see on the cover. And also, my second book was How the 2020 MVP Was Stolen, which is how Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers during the 2020 season. So yeah, you can read all about that in that book. But we are joined by Evan Daniel. Evan, how are you? How's your Week 11?
I'm good. Thanks, Walt. Week 11 was a really good week. And I'm really happy. I was really nervous last night because I went on a rant last week about how I was so excited for Monday Night Football. And I was really hoping that I wouldn't have egg on my face after that game. But it went pretty much exactly as we said. I think I had the score last night, pregame 34-9. Not bad, 34-10. We'll take it. And I'm very proud of you. You mentioned that you kind of followed my lead and took some of these alternate spreads pre-game, just getting huge plus money on just, it doesn't matter who they play, going against Dallas, minus 13.5, minus 20.5, getting like 5-1, 4-1. So I'm very proud of you, Walt, for taking that lead and taking advantage.
Well, I appreciate the advice on that. So yeah, we had a monster night last night. We hit Texans -7 for 5 units. We had Texans minus 13.5 plus 200. We had Texans minus 20.5 plus 480. We had Joe Mixon over rushing yards, and we had Texans Bengals teaser with all hit. It was awesome. The only thing that didn't hit was we had a sinking parlay. And that kind of blew up in her face right away when John Mechie got a 16-yard pass. It was just over.
And one of the things I said last week is, so I play the games live where, I said we like Dallas team total unders, right? The game was 16.5. And then throughout the game, you could have gotten under 19.5, under 18.5, 17.5. At the end of the game, they weren't going to score in that game at all. Under 13.5, 12.5, and eventually 10.5. So if you're just playing constant live, you're kind of sitting with equity and laying Houston is up 17, just play the minus 16.5. So that's the way I play. That's the way I've been playing against Dallas the last few weeks. I actually got home last night at halftime, so I missed a lot of the first half. But it was kind of right exactly where we said it would be. Dallas did absolutely nothing in the second half. I'm upset that I missed the live fake punt opportunity, the kind of like a weekly occurrence with Mike McCarthy to fake punt on his own 25-yard line. I don't think he's been successful once, but he does it every week, and he does it early in the game. So, really, I'm really thankful this Thanksgiving season for Mike McCarthy, and we only have a few weeks left to take advantage. So
yeah,
we're excited again. We could even skip that game because it's the same rant as last week.
It's a shame. You're right. McCarthy's not going to last much longer. But I love that you pointed out this gem to me in the text last night. So so at fourth quarter, they're down, 17? It's 4th and 10, and they complete a 20-yard pass. But there's a penalty. It drops them back 10 yards. But so that 4th and 20, they punt, even though they did a 20-yard pass.
I think it was 9 minutes to go in the game. Now, granted, right. I think McCarthy knew they were going to lose, and maybe he just didn't want to give them the ball back in that spot. But the game is over. You have nothing to lose, and they just completed a 20-yard pass play. You might as well go for it. There's no harm in going for it. It's not like college football where the boosters don't want you to lose by a certain amount of points. A loss is a loss. They were getting blown out. They were losing at home anyway. You might as well give it a shot. So him punting there was just a classic McCarthy comedy. And by the way, before the game, I saw at some point that the pieces of the ceiling were falling off onto the field or on the side of the field. Like the roof is literally coming down on Dallas right now. It's kind of funny. It's fun to watch, fun to bet on.
No wonder Jerry Jones can't afford curtains. The roof needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
What a disaster! Can't wait to bet against them again. But first, we start off with the Thursday night game. We have Steelers at the Browns. This line's Steelers -3.5, and it seems like a classic Mike Tomlin lost spot. You know, he always wins his underdogs. This is a situation where he's done very poorly, coming off a road win. It's a road favorite coming off a win. Tomlin is 15-30 against the spread. Now, I don't really want to back the Browns either for a couple of reasons. Like first, you have the worst team on a Thursday night. Usually does not do very well. Also, Jameis Winston against the Steelers defense it just seems like you're asking for trouble here. Like he's going to throw multiple interceptions. He had a decent game last week. Like he's not the reason why they lost to the Saints. Like just the Browns didn't feel like tackling Taysom Hill for some reason. And the Steelers don't have anyone like that. They don't even use Pat Freiermuth effectively. But I just don't really want to back the Browns unless we're getting like an insane number of points. Actually, I was looking at this. I was looking at the Week 12 spreads as soon as the Week 11 games are done. And I must have been looking at the wrong line. I think I was looking at the Texans-Cowboys line. And I saw this line was 7. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, yeah, I'll take Cleveland. And then I was like, wait a second, that's not right. It's 3.5. I'm like, I don't know. This is not great value. So I don't know. Maybe that's a reason to take Cleveland because like this is almost begging the public to take Pittsburgh. But I just can't get myself to do it. Are you going to play this game?
Well, no, I'm definitely not going to play this game. Actually, it's been a good run in the contest. Again, 4-1. And again, I lost Sunday Night Football. It's like the fourth time in the last 5 or 6 weeks that we're hitting 4-1, but not getting Sunday night. So maybe I'll stay away from Sunday night just like I always stay away from Thursday night. But, you know, kind of the theme of this week, and I think we talked about this very briefly before, there's 8 home dogs this week. The trend this year has been really dramatically in favor of road favorites. Now, we said 2 weeks ago, midway through the season, that dogs in general were hitting at 55%, which is obviously, I'm sorry, not dogs, favorites were hitting at a 55% clip. And I said at some point it's going to regress. Since then, 2 weeks ago, dogs were 11-3. Last week, favorites bounced back being 9-5. So dogs now 16-12 second half of the season. And I do think there's going to be a continued regression to that, 50-50 mark. And this is like your classic week where a year ago, we're looking at a week with 8 home dogs, especially not just like plus 2.5 dogs, like legit 3.5 and bigger. And it's like, wow, this is such an easy card for somebody who's used to playing dogs in general. But then it's like the trend of this year has just been against that. So it's hard to really focus on the things that I really normally would like. In this game, Pittsburgh last week, unimpressive. 0 touchdowns in that game. Once again, teams that play ball, Pittsburgh tend to forget how to play. So we're looking at Derrick Henry hadn't fumbled in weeks, fumbles. Tucker has kind of fallen off the cliff, missed 2 field goals. Isaiah Likely, a fumble in their own territory. They basically handed a couple of field goals to Pittsburgh, and otherwise Pittsburgh had 4 field goal scoring drives. So Baltimore finally was maybe a little better, but Pittsburgh they're winning these games, give them credit for winning games. But I can't find myself here laying points now with time, and like you said, especially off of a win against Baltimore. But then do I really want Cleveland? Like people think Cleveland's defense is really good. Cleveland's defense is not that good. Cleveland's defense last week gave up 8.2 yards per play to New Orleans. It doesn't have any receivers. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is the guy who's killing Cleveland. And also Myles Garrett I saw popped up on the injury report today. So if he's not playing, I don't really want a part of Cleveland either. But am I going to lay 3.5 on the road in a divisional game off that loss? Probably not. I don't want to lay that hook. I fully expect Pittsburgh to win the game. I'd be surprised if they lost, but I think it could be a very close game, one of these ugly games. Also pay attention to weather. It's supposed to rain heavily, and there's supposed to be very heavy winds. If you notice, the over-under in this game opened 42 and is now down to 36, and that's wind-related. So, yeah, Boswell seems to be great. Dustin Hopkins, of course, missed a bunch of bunny kicks last week. So that could come into play, getting one of those like 19-16 type of games, 16-10 low-scoring games. I'm not laying 3.5 points in a low-scoring game with wind with Pittsburgh off of a win against Baltimore, but I'm certainly not betting Cleveland with that defense with maybe a banged-up Myles Garrett. It's a classic game where Winston will move the ball, throw for 350 yards and 3 picks in the end zone. So no bet here for me. Probably lean dog with the hook and too late to the window on the under.
Yeah, what happened to Dustin Hopkins last week?
What he missed, 26 and a 27-yarder or something like that?
Yeah, it's like okay, I don't even see missing one, but like two, like how do you miss two chip shot field goals?
I think once these kickers miss one, that's it. It's in their head, and
Yeah,
these coaches need to kind of know their kickers. If you're missing these short kicks, it becomes a mystery what's going to happen the rest of the game. Now Tucker missed two and then he made one, but Tucker has been off. Like his kicks, remember in the past they used to talk about how Tucker's kicks would go like exactly down the middle, and now they're close. If they're good, they're close to the uprights. So he's definitely falling off. I don't trust Dustin Hopkins. Boswell's been amazing. Boswell's one of the best kickers in the league. But in that wind, Russ is going to be throwing these jump balls down the field. I don't trust either side in this game, and I'm not laying points with Pittsburgh off of a Baltimore win.
Yeah, I'm not touching this one either. We'll have the same game parlay and player prop bet. I don't even like. I just can't bring myself to bet this. It's just a disappointing game, especially with the weather. You're right.
You can look in this game though. Taysom Hill just killed Cleveland. Maybe this is a Justin Fields game. Maybe there's value on like a Justin Fields. They did want to use him last week. They said they wanted to use him last week. Of course, he comes in and slides a yard short. And if ball's at 30, you have to get to the big fat 40-yard marker, and the guy slides a yard and a half shy. But I could see them really utilizing Fields in this game. So from a same game parlay or prop perspective, you might get some value on Fields rushing yards. Given what Taysom Hill just did, I think they can utilize Fields in the same way.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think that would probably be included. You're right. They must have seen that, and Tomlin's a sharp coach, so I feel like he's going to implement it in some way. But let's get to some games we might care about more. Lions at the Colts. This line is Detroit minus 7.5. Of course, Detroit won 52-6 against the Jaguars. They scored touchdowns on the first 7 drives, which is just pretty amazing. It was a minus 14. They just won so easily. Like it just wasn't even in doubt. Even though Jacksonville scored the first 3 points, and then it was just not in doubt after that. But yeah, they have it's a tougher spot though. The Colts obviously a better team, but Detroit plays in 4 days after this. They play on Thanksgiving, not just on Thursday. It's the early game on Thursday. So it's a tough situation as a big favorite heading into that. Also, like I said, Colts are better than Jaguars. Obviously, everyone is, but the Colts haven't lost by more than 10 points this year. And they they kept the 2 games against the Texans to a combined 4 points. And we just saw Detroit nearly lose to Houston. They were down big at halftime and they came back, but still. So I kind of wonder why Detroit is minus 7.5. I get like it's the public perception, and Detroit's coming off the big win. But if you just compare the 2 teams and all the results, you would think that this is probably should be a little bit lower. Like my line for this game, I believe is. Let me see. It's Detroit minus 6. So I think this is on the wrong side of 7. So I like the Colts here. I'm not crazy to fade the Lions because they're the best team in the NFL, or arguably, or at least one of the best teams in the NFL. So this is not going to be a huge play for me. I might consider it for the contest. I don't think it's in my top 5 currently, but if there are injuries elsewhere, then this might slide in. So yeah, I like the Colts. So what do you think about this one?
I'm in the same boat. Highlighted this as a maybe on the Colts. I did make the line 7.5, so I don't think this line should be shy of a touchdown. Detroit has kind of been let down proof lately, even with the short week Thanksgiving game coming up. Both of these teams have been excellent against the spread. I'm still more impressed Detroit-wise being 8-2 against the spread, given that every single week there's a tax on playing Detroit. But the Colts are also, 8-3 against the spread. So, and you mentioned they only have 2 losses this year by 8 or more points, one of them by 10, one by 8. Both of those games were Flacco games. Richardson, every single game he's played has been 1-score games, 6 or less. The back door is certainly open. He's going to be trying to throw the ball late. If they can keep pace, the back door might be open, and maybe they don't maybe Detroit doesn't keep their foot on the gas. I think we said last week that we thought they would, given how Goff played the week before. He had 5 picks, 4 real picks, 1 Hail Mary pick. And, let's get back into the game. Let's get some touchdown passes. They were throwing the ball into the fourth quarter, into the early fourth quarter. They were still throwing. And credit to them. This is the 4th time this season where they have more touchdowns than incompletions. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's hard to fathom the offensive success they've been having. But I lean Indy. And really, they've been a covering machine. I think they can keep this game relatively close. I think the back door is over. I do like the over I think both of these teams will put up points. The only question is, does Richardson throw picks? Does he take a sack and fumble? Anzalone being out now is a big loss for Detroit defensively. So I do think at home we're getting some value, even though I think the line is relatively correct. At some point, there's got to be some letdown, some semblance of a letdown from Detroit. I do fully expect them to win. They could certainly find themselves behind and come back. So I lean 7.5. I don't know if it's top 5 like you, but it's definitely up there as a consideration.
Oh, yeah, it's not top 5 for me at the moment, but like I said, if there are other injuries, if there are injuries on other games and like those teams I like fall off, then this might slide in. Richardson played pretty well last week, and I thought he might, given that he wanted to show that he didn't deserve to be benched. I do wonder if that carries over. This is a good matchup from just based on how the Lions are a pass funnel defense, and the Lions usually don't see scrambling quarterbacks, so this could be an edge for him. But at the same time, as John says, I don't trust Richardson. It's a tough one. I feel like if you have the Colts in the contest here, you're just like sweating out, like all right, please don't throw a pick six. Please don't throw a pick six.
Exactly. Because if they're down 14, you have a shot. They're going to try.
Right.
They're going to try down 14. So, is Detroit in this game going to do what they did last game and really coming out just on fire? Every drive is methodical, surgical, and move the ball at will. And you don't normally see that. So, I mean, I heard somebody say earlier that Detroit should never be favored by less than 10. Okay. They're good. Don't get me wrong, they're good. I have them as best team in the league also. But are they the Patriots of 2007? Are they the Chiefs from a couple of years ago? I don't think they're that good.
Right.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit on how good this team really is. They're very good. But are they the best team we've ever seen? No.
Yeah, they're now the Super Bowl favorite. If you guys haven't seen, I think they're plus 350. Chiefs, the Chiefs have fallen to plus 500. So a tiny bit of value there if you wanted them. But
I have no interest in Super Bowl futures.
Yeah, I just bet. I just put my bonus bets on them. Whenever I get a bonus bet, I put.
Yeah, you mentioned that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I've been putting it on Detroit for a while. Like when they were 8-1, 7-1, I kept throwing bonus bets on them. Not so much anymore. Not at plus 350. If they lose a game or two, then we might get that again. But those days are over, unfortunately. So I'll just have to find a new team to bet. Maybe the Bills are like 8-1 now. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's get to the next one, which is Chiefs at the Panthers. So this is a beauty of a game. Chiefs are favored by 11. You have Bryce Young starting again. I love how they have to announce that every game, like he's starting again. Jonathan Brooks should play. Their second round rookie running back. It should be interesting how he does. I don't expect him to unseat Chuba Hubbard at all, but especially given that Hubbard just got a big contract. But I'm excited to see that at least. But the Panthers have gotten one key player back the last time they played, and they're getting a key player back this game. They got DJ Wanham back against the Giants. I actually missed that when we were handicapping that game in Munich. Wanham's a very good pass rusher, and they didn't have any pass rushers to speak of but, to start the year. But Wanham was out for the entire season until that Giants game. They had him back, and he played very well, and they got after Daniel Jones, and they won the game. So having him is going to be key against Patrick Mahomes, obviously. And then this game, they're going to get Adam Thielen back, presumably. So it's another threat here. I don't know if this is going to be enough to beat the Chiefs, or not beat the Chiefs, but at least cover against the Chiefs. Now, Kansas City's in a spot where they lost for the first time. And I looked this up. So teams that have started 6-0 or better and then lost their first game, I think the public might think they bounce back, but they don't. They're actually 32-43 against the spread in their next game. I'm not going to bet a team based on a trend or something, but I will at least second guess taking a team in that scenario. So I don't really want to back the Chiefs in this potential down spot, even though they are playing against Bryce Young. But I don't want to back Bryce Young either. Like, it just seems like, you could suddenly be down 21-0. And then you're like, all right, is Bryce Young going to come back? Like, there's zero chance, So I don't want to back Carolina. I will take them for office pool purposes, but I'm nowhere near betting this game. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so that trend you mentioned is interesting because we see that across a lot of different sports: basketball, baseball, football. You get a team on a streak, either whether it's an undefeated streak or just a long winning streak, and then there's finally a loss, and there's somewhat of an exhale, right? So that has that's kind of a psychological thing across a lot of different teams. So I checked a couple of seasons, last season, the year before, and the year before, with Kansas City coming off the Buffalo loss, because we were on Buffalo last week because Buffalo is 3-0 now, 4-0 against Kansas City in the regular season. And I wanted to see what did Kansas City do in the following week, and they won all 3 games. They actually didn't cover one. They were a 10.5-point favorite. They won by 10, but in their other games, they won all by more than 10 points. So for me, it's not about who's playing for the Panthers, who's in, who's out. So for me, it's really about Kansas City motivation. And we've said this a number of times. If Mahomes and the Chiefs want to cover, if they want to put up 28 points, and if they want to defend and give up 9, 10 or fewer, they can. But they just don't have the motivation to run up the score. They don't have they don't have that killer instinct now like Detroit has to score in every possession. We've said a number of times they do exactly what is enough for them to win and then move on. Mahomes doesn't pass the ball downfield. Last week, he only had one play where he passed for more than, I think, a 16-yard pass was his longest pass play. Otherwise, everything was 10 or fewer. I figure Kansas City's probably good for mid-20s. I don't see them putting up 30-plus anymore. They just don't care to do so. So really, this comes down to whether or not you like Bryce Young to get you into the back door late. I probably lean Carolina with the points. I said before, so many of these home dogs where in the past it's like automatic. I'm taking the plus 10.5 at home. I don't want to take Bryce Young. He's one of those quarterbacks that you just don't want to have any sort of bet on. But I just can't lay points with Kansas City when they have not, and they've continued not to show any sort of motivation to win by margin. They want to run the ball. Carolina wants to run the ball. It'll be a lower scoring game. It'll be grind out the clock. We're not getting plays downfield. We're not getting the explosives. He does try to get Worthy downfield, but he seems to throw him out of bounds for some reason. I'm not sure if it's Worthy or not. Maybe he doesn't trust Worthy. He's putting the ball into a certain spot, but they're not connecting on the deep ball. So maybe Worthy needs to be traded like Marquez Valdes-Scantling and needs Derek Carr to throw him the deep ball. But you're not getting those explosives, and therefore, and you don't have the motivation to run up the score. I can easily see this game being like a 24-16 type of game, and I can't lay 10.5, 11 points in this spot.
There's a chance Isaiah Pacheco comes back for this game, so that would be a boost for the Chiefs. Then again,
Hunt's been okay. Hunt's been okay.
Yeah, he's just been okay though. Like Pacheco I think is a big upgrade.
Sure, but will they run him? Will they run him 20 carries if he's first coming back now? I don't think so.
No,
if he comes back, he's going to play sparingly.
Right,
still going to split carries,
especially with a short week coming up because
exactly.
It's not quite Thursday, but a Friday game.
Right.
As that Parrot mentioned, Chiefs play the Raiders next week. So even though the Raiders aren't a good team, I think they're looking ahead to that Black Friday game a little bit here. So I can't take the Chiefs in this bad spot. But as everyone else in the chat is saying, I think John says Mahomes had his right arm start off. I still wouldn't take the Panthers,
and that's fair. No, you don't have to take the Panthers,
right.
But I can very easily see this game being 20-10, or maybe it's 23-7 or 23-6 in the fourth quarter, and Carolina gives you that late touchdown. Next thing you know, it's 23-13. You didn't cover, so it's just too many points to lay with a team that doesn't care to score that many points, and both teams are going to be methodical. Both teams are going to look to run the ball. Mahomes will pick up the third and shorts, keep the clock, keep the chains moving. And without the explosives, without the motivation to run up the score, which they haven't shown to have, you can't lay the points.
Yeah, Kim McNeagle asking if Carolina covered an 11-point spread at Kansas City a few years ago. Yeah, it's 2020 though, so a while ago. Have the Panthers faced a defense like the Chiefs this year? So let's run through the schedule very quickly. They played the Saints. Chargers are they have a top 5 defense right now. They played the Raiders, Bengals, Bears. Bears is a decent defense. Falcons, Redskins are in the top 10. Broncos. So yeah, there are a few defenses that they faced, kind of like the Chiefs.
No, listen, no, you're right. The games they've lost, they've gotten blown out. 14, 33, 18, 26, 10 to Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's defense is garbage. 23 to the Chargers. 37. When they've lost, they've lost. But in the last 2 games, again, bad teams, bad defenses, no question. But to me, it's not about Carolina. This game is purely based on, does Kansas City care to get margin? And the answer to that is we know they don't. So if we know they don't care to get margin, how could you bet on that?
Yeah, I guess just
I think if you like Kansas City in this game to cover,
Yeah.
you're better off playing the Panther team under.
Yeah. I think, that's good. Slew asked what the over under for the Panthers is points wise. I think this says like 26-15, I think.
Yeah, it'll
Uh,
probably be like 15 and a half, 16 and a half, somewhere in that
yeah.
ballpark.
Yeah. What you could do is you could take the Chiefs first half, and if they are losing or like barely winning, you take them at halftime. Um, I don't see them really going out all out to cover. What you could do is maybe check the news and see if any Carolina players trash talk Mahomes, and then maybe he'll be motivated. That's like the only way.
If you really like Carolina, I'm sorry, Kansas City, I would lean more towards Carolina under.
Yeah. We got a $9.99 super chat from Dro Fascio 2190. Thank you so much, Dro Fascio. Really appreciate it. He says, thank you guys for everything you do. This is actually the wife of the account holder, LOL, who've been following you, Walt, once I got into betting 2 years ago. Same roots. Thoughts on Chargers this week? Well, I mean, we're going to do that at the end, but
Chargers are a long way from the Chargers.
well, for a $9.99 super chat, might as well do it now. Well, a preview for what we'll save Evan's take on the Chargers at the end, but for my take on the Chargers, this is going to be. We'll see how accurate my overrated underrated page is this year, because I've had the Ravens as an overrated team all year. I've had the Chargers as an underrated team all year. I don't like the Ravens because their defense is so bad, especially their pass defense. They can't cover receivers. They can't cover tight ends. Their offensive line is not very good either. So I think the Ravens just have a lot of weaknesses. Now, they have a lot of strengths too. So they're a dangerous team. But I don't think they're as good as everyone says they are to be. Like they're like number 5 or 6 in my power rankings, and not number 1 or 2. So there's that. And then the Chargers, I think their defense is incredible. They're very well coached, like so much better coached than they were last year. Justin Herbert is playing at the top of his game. Quentin Johnston's coming on. Ladd McConkey is getting better each week. J.K. Dobbins is his former self again. So there's a lot to like with the Chargers, and they're +3. It doesn't make any sense to me because the Chargers were 1.5 point favorites against the Bengals, and we saw the Bengals and Ravens play 2 very close games where Cincinnati could have taken both games. Like they really could have. And so we have a 4.5 point swing from that one. Like it doesn't really make much sense to me. So yeah, I like the Chargers. I like the Chargers a lot this week. They may not quite be in my card. They're like 5 or 6 if I had to rank all the games I like. They're either 5th or 6th. So I don't know if they're going to quite make the card for Super Contest or Circa, but I will be betting the Chargers at +3. So I hope that answers your question. We'll get Evan's take at the end. I don't want to like spoil everything. But yeah, that's what I have on the Chargers. So thank you so much, Joe Fascio, or Joe Fascio's wife. Thank you. I appreciate it. So anyway, let's get to the next game, which is Vikings at the Bears. So the Vikings are favored by 3 here. It's actually up to 3.5. This keeps a ping pong between 3.5 and 3. I'm not sure what's going on there. I thought maybe the sharps liked Chicago 3, but then I guess other sharp money came in on Minnesota, bumping up to 3.5. I really have no strong take in this game. I feel like this is a tough spot for Caleb Williams, going against Brian Flores, who's just a defensive mastermind. I think he might confuse Caleb Williams, who hasn't been that good, this year. I think he's had some bright moments for sure, especially last week in that final drive against Green Bay. But he's had so many bad moments too. He just holds the ball forever. He took 9 sacks against the Patriots. Like he might be back to that mode in this game. Then again, Minnesota on the road outside to check the weather, of course, for a dome team. Like laying 3.5 on the road, that's the worst spread in the NFL. So I'm not dying to take Minnesota either. So I'm leaning Minnesota, but not planning on betting this game. What do you think about this one?
So I'm leaning Chicago, also not going to play the game in the contest. I'm leaning Chicago. I originally in my head thought I like Minnesota because of the defensive matchup, Flores against Caleb Williams. Minnesota being off the easy win. Chicago's off another terrible loss. Almost, now first of all, it's 4 straight losses. So the wheels have kind of come off for the Bears. And once again, how do they respond to that game? They did not respond well when they lost on a Hail Mary. Obviously, the Hail Mary being a lot worse. But they had a chip shot field goal to beat the Packers, who they hate, and they got it blocked. So that's a really, really tough game to respond to. You mentioned the Flores defense, which is obviously a terrible matchup for Caleb. But now, since Christian Darrisaw has been out a couple of weeks, Darnold's really kind of come back to earth a lot. The last couple of games, last 4 games for Minnesota from the yards per play, and I like looking at the yards per play. That's my main stat that I look for. 5.5 against the Rams, not great. 5.8 against Indy, not great considering the defensive quality for Indy. 4.9 against Jacksonville. We know they struggled against Jacksonville 2 weeks ago to put points on the board, but they weren't moving the ball well either. And 4.7. So again, these are 4 below average offensive games. So I don't expect their offense to all of a sudden now turn on. I know Christian Watson had a big game last week against the Bears, and certainly Jefferson could do the same. But I don't trust Darnold here without his left tackle to move the ball. They should be warranted to be favored by more than a field goal. So at 3.5, I lean Chicago. I think this is a toss-up game. I think it's a back-and-forth game, one of those 19-17, 20-19 type of games, very similar to last week with Green Bay. So I'm not going to lay 3.5 for a road team in that scenario. Coming off an easy win, but definitely not I'm not going to go with this game in the contest, regardless of what the number is. But I lean Chicago.
Yeah, so I mean, we're both pretty neutral to this game. Any thoughts on over rushing yards for Justin Herbert? Baltimore hasn't given up much rushing yards to quarterbacks this year, so and I guess that it makes sense given that they go against Lamar Jackson in practice all the time. So generally, you want to attack the Ravens through the air. So I'm not dying to bet the over on that. I don't know. Actually, I should say I don't know what it is. Like it might be a low number. So if it is low, then maybe bet the over. But I don't know what it is. I didn't look. Obviously, I'll look on Monday afternoon at all the props and stuff. But I can't imagine like putting that in a single parlay or something. I don't like Chicago plus 9.5 in a teaser. Like 3.5 to 9.5, just not good value. Like just bet the 3.5. You know, if you like Chicago. So So anyway, let's get to the next one. And I imagine that we both love this game. Cowboys.
Replay tape.
Yes, you could just
tape 1 week ago.
Yeah, you could just go back to last week's episode and just listen to what we said, and then just instead of Texans,
plug and play.
Right, just place with Redskins. Now Washington, it's a road game, which I don't know if some people might be like, oh, Dallas is not at home anymore. They're so bad at home. They don't have to worry about that stupid sun or something. But no, this is gonna be worse for Dallas. Actually, this reminds me of that Washington Carolina game where it was like 47-10, even though Marcus Mariota played most of the game. I feel like this game could go just the same way. Redskins have a top 10 defense under Dan Quinn. They are a little soft to the run, but Dallas doesn't have the running game to take advantage of that. They're really good against the pass. They're just going to completely nullify everything that Cooper Rush is doing. And it should be Trey Lance. I don't know why he's not playing. But anyway, I don't see Dallas moving the ball at all, especially if adding injury to insult. Like they had 3 offensive linemen get hurt late in the game. Like if they're out, like forget it. I'm just going to be betting minus 20.5 again. Maybe in minus 27.5, depending on what the numbers are. Like this is going to be a massacre. I can't see this game staying close. I imagine that you are in the same boat.
Yeah, and when we talk about Dallas, it's not just Dallas is bad. Oh, Dallas has a bad coach. There's a lot of factors that go against them. Last week we talked about Houston was coming off of a game, national TV. They were up 20. They had 23 points at halftime, didn't score, and they were coming off of 2 national primetime games losses, and they needed to get right. And you just posted their get right spot for Washington. That's exactly what this is. Back-to-back losses. You have now, again, an extra team with extra rest from Thursday playing a team on short rest. That's a huge advantage, Washington. Jaden Daniels had his worst game last week. There's a huge difference now. Maybe the injury led to that, and obviously now he gets 10 days off to get a little healthier. So that's big. But also you're going from the Philly defense, which I know you'll say later is the number 1 EPA defense. And certainly they're one of the top defenses. I have them at number 3, I think, by yards per play, to Dallas's defense, which is what, number 30, 31, 32, somewhere in that ballpark. So you have a lot of different factors leading towards the love of Washington in this spot. And then the last thing we talked about with respect to Dallas last week was, are they preparing for these games knowing you have a lame duck coach? We know we have a terrible quarterback. We know the offensive line's banged up. We know they don't have a running game. They have receivers who are banged up. The defense is bad. Great. But McCarthy's done. We know he's done. Jerry Jones has already said, well, we'll see what happens in the season. Okay, it's code word for he's done. So is the team going to come into the practice facility on today, tomorrow, and prepare enough of what it takes to prepare for an NFL game? The answer is absolutely not. Washington is now on the outside looking at, well, now on the outside of the division. Philly has the lead in the division. They're still in the wild card hunt. They still have the lead for that. So they're a playoff team. They must win this game. They're going to practice. They're going to prepare, and Dallas will not. You can't make the lines high enough in some of these games. 10 is not enough. This game is another blowout. I know it's not at home, and we talked about Dallas at home. What are they now like? I think they've gotten outscored at home 187-69, 6 straight games where they trailed by 20 points at home. It's okay, so they're going away, so they're not going to get booed at home. Maybe they'll have more fans because Washington doesn't have a lot of fans. Maybe they'll get booed in Washington also. Maybe Dallas fans want to go to boo them there too. And Washington, like Philly, doesn't like Dallas. This is a divisional opponent. So they have extra motivation to play well, to prepare, you can expect the fake punt coming at some point early in this game. And Washington or Chiefs in the Survivor, you go Washington, take the home team that needs the game, that really needs the game, and get right spot against a team that basically quit. This is an easy pick. This is my number one game on the board for the third straight week going against Dallas. And like I said, you can do it again. Minus 16.5, take it, 20.5. This game's going to be ugly. Dallas has no motivation to play well. They have no ability to play well if they wanted to. 0 points in the second half last night. So that's inexcusable. So Washington, give me a game. Again, there's 2 straight games where Dallas has given up 34 points. Give me again 34-9, 34-10, maybe 34-13. This is a 21-point blowout.
Yeah, I gave you a shout out of my predicted score. It was a 34-9. just that was your prediction. It makes sense. A few field goals. Aubrey's going to get a chance to do those, and that's about it.
Or a touchdown late where they go for 2 because they're down by whatever they're down by and they don't get it. So exactly. That's why I like the 9, the 16, because that's what I think. And I don't know if I like props in this game, but I certainly expect Washington to come out firing away, running, moving, aggressive play calling. And what's Dallas going to do? Fake punt, 4th and 9 on their own 25-yard line. Pass for 4 yards. Washington ball in the 20. Yep. Game over. 14-0 before you can blink.
Yeah, it's gonna be a massacre, I think. Kimmy Eagle says same game parlay Washington minus 10, Jane Daniels over passing yards, and Robinson anytime touchdown. Then add McLaurin over receiving yards. Yeah, they won't give you much of a boost if you already have Daniels over passing yards and you add McLaurin over receiving yards. Like you can actually play with it. We actually showed this on the show before, where if you have if you parlay Daniels over like a quarterback over passing yards and his receiver over passing yards, but then you just switch the receiver to under, you'll get such better odds. So you don't really get much of an advantage adding the receiver.
Wouldn't play the SGPs in this game. Just lay Washington. That's it. Lay it. Lay 9.5. I laid 9.5 on Sunday before the line went to 10. Lay 10. Take the alt lines. Take the halftime line. Take the Dallas team total under. You could play it in those ways, and you don't have to worry about passing yards, or you don't have to worry that the game could be 27-6 at halftime, and then Jaden Daniels doesn't play in the fourth quarter or doesn't have any passing yards in the fourth quarter. This could easily be a game where he has 215 yards passing, and they run the ball. Mm-hmm. So, and the same thing with his rushing yards. There's no reason for them to do that. You'll get Trey Lance in the game; he'll fumble or throw a pick, and that happened the other night too. Last night also, Cooper Rush gets a sack, a lineman gets the ball, lineman fumbles. I mean, it's just comedy. It's comedy. Enjoy it. Bet it. Enjoy it. Live bet it. Continue to enjoy it. And then you get a Thanksgiving Day game where, by the way, Dallas is favored. So
yeah, we thought the Giants might be favored, but that was before Daniel Jones got benched. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Hen Hunt says too many points here. I actually think there are not enough points. I think this line should be way higher than 10. 14 may not even be enough.
There's a very big difference here, again, because Dak, I know Dak was hurt, fine, but there's a level of preparation throughout the week. Dallas wasn't basically eliminated at that time. They were 3-4. They lost the Atlanta game, they lost the Houston game, they lost the Philly game. Now they're 3-7, the season's over. Yeah. There's a much different level of effort that goes into the weekly planning and game planning. And then you have the team. Atlanta stinks, by the way. Atlanta's terrible. Now, Washington's not terrible, and Philly's not terrible, and Houston's not terrible. All three of those teams had motivation to stomp on Dallas's throat, and that's what you're getting here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, lame duck coach. They have nothing to play for at all. I can't see the effort.
The lame duck coach who fake punts every week. He fake punts every week. You can book that now. He will fake punt on 4th and 14 from his own end zone.
Maybe he's doing the what is that? The Martingale system, where like you just keep doing it until it hits, and maybe that's it. I don't know. It's so bad, McCarthy. Again, like we're really gonna miss him. Maybe he takes over as an interim head coach somewhere in the future.
He's going to be in high school next year. He's coaching high school.
Take classes or no?
I don't know what he's doing. He's not coaching the NFL ever again. That's it.
Yeah, Jerry Jones sells the team over under age 100.
That's not happening.
No, it's not. He loves the team too much. He's gonna put curtains in before he turns sells the team at 100. Speaking of the single prop, I agree. I don't think there's a reason to do that. Although I do like the Brian Robinson over rushing prop. That's like the only thing I could think of here.
Lattimore is also playing this week.
Yeah, it's another reason to take Washington. Washington, like you said, they're your top play. They're my top play as well.
It's not about Washington. Again, the last 4 weeks, the Dallas opponent's my top play. They books can't adjust this line enough.
Yeah,
you can't adjust the line enough. There's too many intangibles that the computer models, they're not going to make the line 14.5 or 17.5. It's not going to happen. So they just physically can't adjust the line to where it needs to be for me to want Dallas.
Yeah,
I don't want Dallas in this game. I wouldn't take Dallas plus 28.5. I wouldn't.
No,
because this game could be 40-7.
Yeah,
I have no interest in Dallas at any number.
Yeah, we saw like I brought it up, the Washington Carolina result. Like that could easily be that score.
Let me know on Thursday night what Andy's if you have Andy on this week, how he can make a case for Dallas.
I'll look forward to it. Yeah, Andy says you can make a case for every team, or at least you should try. So yeah, we'll see what he says. Yeah, Andy will be on the show on Thursday, and yeah, I also said maybe it's a little too early. He said he'll also be doing the Thanksgiving night show, which will be fun too. Anyway, let's get to the next game. So we touched on this a little bit. Buccaneers at the Giants. Buccaneers are favored by 5. This was 3.5, and then it was announced that Daniel Jones will not only be benched, he's demoted to third string, and that has to do with contract situation. Like they don't want to pay him a certain amount of money, or I don't know what is exactly, like as part of his contract will be guaranteed or something based on playing time. So they don't want him playing anymore. Basically, it's kind of reminds me of last year with Denver just benching Russell Wilson. Just not just for performances, but just they don't want to pay him anymore. So I like Tampa here. That wasn't really the case with Daniel Jones, but we have Tommy DeVito stepping in, and I think a lot of casual fans might be like, "Oh, come on!" Like Tommy DeVito is not that much worse than Daniel Jones, but like, if you look at the metrics, he actually is. Of all the qualifying quarterbacks last year, which is 125 passing yards or more, he was the 4th worst quarterback in the NFL according to EPA. The three quarterbacks who were only worse than him were Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and Bailey Zappi. Like that was it. Like he was the 4th worst quarterback in the NFL, and now he's going against the Tampa defense. And Tampa's defense is not ranked highly at all. In fact, they're very low. But Todd Bowles has a history of just confusing and frustrating these bad quarterbacks, bad/young quarterbacks. I've looked at the bad quarterbacks that Tampa has played since the start of last year. And I only went back to the start of last year because that's when their defense downgraded from the behemoth we saw that won the Super Bowl. So they played 7 bad quarterbacks since the beginning of 2022. Those were Justin Fields, who is a good scrambler but bad passer. Desmond Ridder twice, Will Levis, Bryce Young twice, and Spencer Rattler. In those 7 games, they're 5-2 against the spread, and their opponents have averaged only 15.6 points per game against them. So I think that Tampa, coming off consecutive losses like that were very close. Like they almost beat Tampa, they almost beat Kansas City, they almost beat San Francisco. They're coming off a bye. They get Mike Evans back. They know they have to go on a run here. I think they're going to be getting some other players back from injury as well. I have to check the injury report, but I think Tampa could really rout the Giants here, who I feel like this DeVito switch is just the team signaling that they're in tank mode. I don't really see this team bouncing back, and like there's a good chance that their head coach is fired at the end of the year as well. Like this could be another lame duck situation, kind of like Dallas. So I like Tampa quite a bit here. They're probably going to be in my card. So who do you like in this game?
So I don't agree.
Okay.
I like the Giants in this game because I might be one of those casual fans who doesn't think there's much of a downgrade right now, despite the numbers that you obviously threw out. And facts are facts. Jones was playing abysmal football. He was airmailing passes on 3rd and 5. Guys are wide open, and he just can't hit them. And it's demoralizing. And you see Malik Neighbors walking off the field. He's wide open on a 3rd down, and Jones isn't even close. So I don't know that there's that much of a drop-off. And he's certainly not an NFL quarterback. Neither is DeVito. So, I mean, last year there were a couple of the early games that DeVito played where he couldn't throw a forward pass. I think he got a little bit better kind of towards the middle of his run, and then the league kind of caught up to him. Tampa Bay, great as a dog. But now you're asking them to lay points. I'm not so sure I trust the defense to lay points. They've certainly given up a lot of points in the last couple of weeks. Before the Niner game 2 weeks ago, they gave 30 to Kansas City, granted overtime, 31 to Atlanta. They gave a 30-plus to Atlanta twice. They gave 27 to New Orleans. Granted, they put up 50. So they gave up a lot of points. They gave 41 to Baltimore. So this defense has not been a defense that's been that great. Now, the caveat to all this is I saw just before we went live that some of the Giants players seem to be pretty pissed off about the move. I think Dexter Lawrence made some comments that, hey, we know what this is about. It's about money. He's the QB1. He gives us the best chance to win. He should be playing. So if that's the sentiment in the locker room, that's a problem. And if that's going to be some sort of where he doesn't have the locker room, he doesn't have the confidence of his teammates, there's not going to be good preparation this week. The team is going to feel like they're out of it, obviously. And if that's something that is accurate, then I don't know that I want any part of the Giants. I'm certainly not laying points with Tampa because I think I originally thought that they're going to move on and they'll give a good effort, even though they're 2-8, almost like the new coach bounce. Maybe it's the new quarterback bounce for 1 week. They'll get a good effort from the players. But if the players are pissed off about the change and they like Jones and it's a split locker room, now I want no part of the game. You're definitely on the pro side. The line, obviously went up from 3.5 to now 5.5. So, and the Giants, one of those teams, whether it's Jones or anybody, they're 0-5 in their last 5 games. They're 0-5 against the spread in the last 5 games. Just another team that I've been suckered into playing a few times this year and lost. So I'm not overly excited about playing the Giants, but this line to me, before I even saw the shift in the quarterback, I thought the line would be like, 3.5, 4. So the line seemed to be moving, and I thought maybe I have some value. But when I'm seeing all these comments in the locker room, I just don't want part of it. So I don't know that I agree with you on Tampa, but I don't think I'd want to be on the Giants with that attitude. So for me, this is probably a pass.
I brought up the EPA for all the quarterbacks from not just this year but last year as well. Just combine these 2 seasons. I want to see
behind Bryce Young.
Yeah,
that's all you needed to show me. I see Easton Stick there too.
Yeah, Bryce Young 49th, Tommy DeVito 52nd. I wanted to see how he stacked up against Daniel Jones this year because obviously
this is some list.
Yeah, this is Philip Walker. This is 125 passes or more. Philip Walker.
Look at this. This is the who's who of the NFL.
Yeah, Dorian Thompson Robinson, Cooper Rush, Trevor Siemian, Spencer Rattler, the 5 worst quarterbacks we've seen. Richardson, by the way, this doesn't incorporate rushes, but yeah, that's
well, he's throwing. He's completing like 40% of his throws.
He's
Snoop, Bailey, Zappy, Mac Jones. Oh my good.
Zach Wilson, and then Tommy DeVito, number 52. So where's Daniel Jones is number 36. So
and that's my point. Like he's so bad that you're going from bad to bad, right?
Well, you're going bad to
these
worse.
Guys are NFL quarterbacks.
I think because he's on the level of like Andy Dalton, Gardner Minshew. Like those guys are bad. Yeah, they're really bad.
These guys are all bad.
But these guys are like they should not even be in the NFL. Like these guys, like at least these guys are like backup caliber. Like whereas these guys are the fringe practice squad at best. You know what I mean? Like that's I think this is a major downgrade.
Listen, I'm not running to bet Tampa. If you say I got to lay it Tampa or play them on a money line, like I'm not. If this is Survivor, there's no shot I'm going and betting Tampa Bay in this game on the road. Both teams off a bye. I mean, both teams off a bye and a loss. I usually like teams off of a bye and a loss. Backdoor is fully open. Like Baker's a great backdoor cover, but now you're asking them to lay points and win by a margin when they're not really accustomed to doing that. I just want to quickly check their wins this year. They won, obviously, the New Orleans game by 1 million. They They beat Philly by 17. They beat Detroit on the road, big great win. Okay, so their 4 wins have actually all been by margin, by some level of margin. Detroit they beat by 4, but otherwise it's not like they're winning games like Atlanta, who wins games by 1 or 2. Okay, listen, I hear you. I'm not in a rush to bet this game. My initial gut was go with the Giants until I saw the comments by Dexter Lawrence and some others, and that to me gave me some pause.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that though from my end. So I may increase the unit count here. Still asking where's Tim Boyle. I had to lower the minimum pass attempts to 70, and there he is. There's Mr. Tim Boyle, just slightly worse than Anthony Richardson as a passer. So bad. We had a speaker Survivor. We had a question: would you take the Chiefs or the Redskins in Survivor? For me, Redskins. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you have to look forwards, but yeah, right. For sure, I would be on the Redskins because again, for me, it's about motivation. I still don't know that the Chiefs care, and they're also a road team. I prefer to take the home team when it comes to Survivor. And as far as Washington's concerned, I mean, obviously they play Tennessee next week, so that's a potential. That's the only other time where I would look to take Washington. Whereas Kansas City, looking ahead, and you can play them against the Raiders next week if you want to sneak one through. They get Cleveland. I mean, that's a road game. I would probably, if you had Kansas City left, I would use them next week. Mm-hmm. Which, depending on what contest you're in, if you're in Circa, you got to play a team on Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's only 99 people left in Circa. I'm still mad. I made one stupid mistake when I was going to take the Jets on a Thursday night against New England. And if I did that, I'd still be alive. All the teams that I had planned, I would still be one of those 99 teams left. But I avoided the Thursday night game for some reason. So I just don't like picking Thursday night. But again, contest play, you have to make all 5 of your picks. Survivor, you're making one pick. So just poor execution. Oh, well.
Yeah, I'd rather go Washington than Kansas City next week. So anyway, all right, let's get to the next game, which is New England at Miami. So this is another potential look ahead here for the Dolphins. They have to play against the Packers on Thanksgiving night. So you have a big favorite with another game in 4 days. Now, this is a divisional game, but the Packers are the better team, and they already beat the Patriots without Tua Tagovailoa. So if I'm Miami, I'm thinking, hey, we already beat this team without our starting quarterback. We can handle this team without our starting quarterback. Now, they didn't face Drake May last time. The Patriots have gotten some players back from injury. Kyle Duggar's back. Christian Barmore's back. That was a big addition last week. And the Patriots have been playing better recently. Like they had some bad results. Like they got blown out by Houston. They got blown out by Jacksonville in London. But recently they beat the Jets. They beat the Bears. They hung tight with the Rams. Albeit for a little bit. Then they were getting blown out. Then they got it close again. They got it to 6 toward the end. They went to overtime against Tennessee. Not like the greatest accomplishment, but still like they went on the road and almost won that game. And so I think they can keep pace with Miami and not like super impressed by what the Dolphins have done. Yeah, they covered against the Raiders last week, but that was a close game for a while. That Monday night game against the Rams just self-destructed with stupid mistakes, and they got outgained by 100 yards against the Rams. So I'm just not I don't think this Dolphins team is that good, and I think the Patriots can really keep it close and maybe even pull the upset. I think this can be like a 3-point game or something. So I like New England. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I hate to be exactly what you said. I'm not overly impressed with Miami, and New England has fought hard. They've played hard every single week. Miami last week had a 3rd and 5. They were up by 5 points at the time late in the game. It was like 4 minutes to go in the game. And they got a defensive pass interference. 2 plays later, 47-yard touchdown, game over. But they were 1 3rd and 5 away from giving the ball back to the Raiders. I heard somebody say earlier, maybe yesterday, that the Raiders quit. The Raiders didn't quit last week. They changed the coordinators. They fired half the offensive coaching. They were down by 5. They were certainly in the game. They weren't playing poorly. They weren't playing well, but they weren't playing, gross football. And they were 1 3rd and 5 away from having the ball with a chance to win the game. We know that New England's going to try. We know they're going to play hard. Miami, obviously, like you said, they already beat this team. Maybe they're somewhat of a look ahead. I believe Miami will win. I certainly, if you ask me who's going to win the game, I'm picking Miami to win the game. I think the line at 7 is a little bit high. I probably would have made this 6 or 5.5, somewhere in that ballpark. I certainly don't think Miami is worthy of being a 7-point favorite. They haven't really blown anybody out. New England, their last 4 games are 2-2 straight up. 2 of the losses by 3 in overtime, and by 6. So they're certainly fighting. A 3-1 against the spread in those last 4 games. Miami's got the short week, like you mentioned, playing Thanksgiving night. So I lean New England. I wouldn't say definitely, but certainly a consideration for contest play.
Yeah, me too. They're definitely going to be up there, I think. Now, barring injury, of course. All right, let's get to the next one. This is the final early game. We have the Titans at the Texans. This line is Texans -8 or 8.5. I like Houston here. I know this is a big line, but I think this is a really good matchup for them. You have Will Levis against a team that blitzes heavily. We had this last week. Will Levis against a Minnesota team that blitzes at the highest rate in the NFL. Will Levis is so bad against the blitz. Just if you can look at his splits. And of course, last week he took, I think, 5 or 6 sacks. He threw an interception at the end to get our anytime interception. That prop was a nice win at the end. But I think that Tennessee is just in a rough spot here with a bad quarterback against DeMeco Ryans' defense that will probably get Will Anderson back this week. And this team, like I said, blitzes a lot, so they're gonna have major issues here. Now, Houston hasn't. They won on Monday night, but C.J. Stroud did not play his best game, so I think he might be motivated here. And Nico Collins is going to be in a second game back, so I expect him to play better. I think Houston can click here, and these teams played last year. Houston didn't have a C.J. Stroud in that game; they played a backup, and yet they still beat Tennessee. Will Levis was just horrible in that game, and I expect that to continue here. So. I like Houston, despite this line being maybe a little too high. I don't think it's high enough given the disparity between these two teams. So who do you like here?
So I hate this game because I lean to Tennessee, and it's hard to pick a team like Tennessee with either quarterback here. To me, it's really, I agree. The line, I thought I made the line 9.5. So originally I'm like, 7.5, 9.5. I like Houston. Tennessee's off of another loss. They're now 2-8. They're 1-9 against the spread. So again, a team that's really, really hard to back. But I think this week they played a little bit better than the score indicated. They held Minnesota 4.5 yards per play, which is, I guess, impressive. Levis threw the ball downfield. He had a really nice play downfield, 98-yard touchdown. Maybe you call it luck, but it was a good play. Their offensive line continues to be an issue. They allowed 5 sacks last week against a very good Flores defense. And they couldn't run the ball. I mean, that's another issue. If they can't run the ball and they're relying on Levis to move the ball, that's going to be a bit of a problem. They also have 13 penalties. So they lost 23-13, and they really, 13 penalties in the game. Minnesota only had 3 penalties in the game. But for Houston, it's a short week, off of an easy win. The defense, let's be fair, right? We can badmouth Dallas all we want, but in the first half, Houston's defense wasn't great. And that game is 17-10, thinking, why is Dallas moving the ball here? They completed a bunch of third downs. They gave up the 65-yard catch and run, which wasn't impressive. Maybe Ridley gets a play like that and they can score. So all 5, they did get 5 sacks in the game. All 5 came in the second half. So for me, it's Tennessee's not going to move the ball with any real consistency. Houston, obviously, one of the best defenses, especially the number 2 pass defense by my metrics. Obviously, Nico Collins back is a big difference. We've talked about this now since day one of Houston this season. The early down play calling continues to be a problem. They are in 3rd and long at an outrageous clip. I think last night on the broadcast, Troy Aikman pointed out that their yards per second down were last in the league because they're running the football on 2nd and 10. 2nd and 10, run. 2nd and 8, run. They're setting up 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 because their second downs are just really poor. And that's something that continues to be an issue and that's going to plague them probably in the playoffs against a really good team. For me, this is also the first time in a month where Houston's not playing a primetime game. It's 3 straight primetime games for Houston. Now it's a 1 o'clock. They're easily going to win. Maybe they're somewhat of an exhale spot here. So I don't want to back Will Levis in this situation. I don't like anything about Tennessee, but the back door is open. This is not Dallas's inept offense. It's a better coaching staff. I don't know that Houston has the motivation for margin. They certainly haven't shown that with any real consistency with their wins. So I'm going to lean Tennessee, and I'm absolutely not touching this game in any capacity. No bet, no teaser, no contest, but I'm not laying the points.
Okay. We differ on this one. I could see a backdoor cover. I mean, Will Levis, he did get a late touchdown against the Chargers. Now it was not to get the backdoor cover, but it was kind of close. So if they recovered the onside, maybe they had a chance at it. But this does kind of remind me of the Chargers Titans game where the Titans went on the road, played the Chargers, and the Chargers took it to them. I think that I say Houston's a little bit worse than the Chargers. The Chargers defense maybe a little bit better, but again, Houston, I think they kind of had the magic sauce against Will Levis, just blitzing a lot, and he just self-destructs with stupid sacks and interceptions. Like this guy just makes so many dumb mistakes. That 98-yarder, there was a breakdown or something in coverage, and that was like the only thing they did against Minnesota. Like I don't think.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And they're not moving the ball with consistency. I don't want to be on Tennessee. I want to find myself on Houston, but I just can't lay the point. Again, this has been the theme of the week. All these 8 home underdogs of garbage teams on the do not bet list with non-NFL quarterbacks, but I find myself falling back into, because I do believe second half of the season is going to be a regression to that dog, lean. And I don't want to be laying 7.5 unless I'm a real specific reason. I don't want to be laying 7.5 points. So the old handicapper in me is not going to be on some of those, big road favorites, even though that's kind of been the trend of the season. But we'll see. Maybe I get burned this week on some of these again and just go back and say, you know what, this is the season. That's what it is. Just auto fade Levis, DeVito, Bryce Young. Just you see these quarterbacks on the field, auto fade. It's a question of how much and when to go with contest plays. But yeah, again, the exhale spot for me also, the fact that it's finally now a 1:00 game and Houston's games. I just want to quickly pull up Houston's games here to see, because I know they beat New England by 20.
I think this game might trend like that one.
Right, but otherwise they beat Chicago by 6. They beat Jacksonville. They were behind in the Jacksonville game. They won by 4. Buffalo is obviously a good team. That doesn't count. At New England, they killed them. Indy, close game, 23-20. And then, of course, last night. Otherwise, they lost to the Jets in a game that wasn't well played. They blew the game against Detroit. So chalk that up to a different type of game. But I just don't trust this team getting margin. And I think the backdoor could be open. So for me, I'd have to have like a 17-point lead for me to feel comfortable in the fourth quarter. Because if they're up 14 in the fourth quarter, I don't sense that they're going to be throwing the ball deep. I think they'll be running and punting, and then it's up to Levis for a backdoor. So I think I have 7.5 backdoor potential. Maybe the Titans take an early lead and Houston finds themselves behind at halftime, where I would like to bet Houston in game, but I'm going to be on the dog here and I'm not going to bet it.
I think you're right, like saying that it's not the best spot for the Texans, but I do think it might be nullified by C.J. Stroud not playing all that well and like him being motivated to maybe bounce back, like not on the same level as Jared Goff, but at the same time, I think he and Nico Collins know they have to get going to have success in the playoffs. So I think there's a chance they might do well. And I think the difference between this game and the Jacksonville game is Trevor Lawrence. Like Trevor Lawrence, much better against the blitz than Will Levis. Like Trevor Lawrence is amazing against the blitz. Will Levis is awful. And I think when you're saying auto fade, like these bad quarterbacks, I think it has to be against good defenses. Like Houston ranked top 10 in defensive.
Right. The pressure is big because Tennessee did take 5 sacks last week. And in the second half, Houston had 5 sacks.
Yeah.
That'll be a big key in the game is the pressure because we know Tennessee's not going to run the ball. And the question is, but again, does Houston come out, throw the ball early downs, set up 3rd and short, or bypass 3rd down altogether? Or do they come out and run the ball on 2nd and 8 for a yard? And they've been excellent on 3rd down.
Yeah,
with Nico in the game, but it's putting more pressure on Stroud to make those plays. And again, I don't like the spot here. The 1 p.m. after 3 straight national primetime games, it's just a hard letdown spot. I wouldn't be surprised if they find themselves behind early.
Yeah, well, I do not expect Slowick to change things. So you're right there.
Right. So we know what we're getting at this point in the season.
Yeah, exactly. Jesse asking Josh Allen on bye. So who should he stream in fantasy? DeVito versus the Buccaneers, Winston versus the Steelers, not in that wind. Young versus the Chiefs, or Cooper Rush versus the Redskins. I would say no to Cooper because he might get benched for Trey Lance. So
I wouldn't go Young either against Kansas City's defense.
Yeah, and
for me, it would be Winston. But again, you have a problem with the wind and the rain.
Right. I think it's
I would.
DeVito because there
I
might
had to
be
pick
like
one of those. I might go DeVito.
yeah, it might be garbage time with DeVito. I think that's where you have to go, fortunately. So it's a rough spot. So hopefully you can survive this week and get Josh Allen back. All right, let's get to the late games here. There are a few late games. Broncos at the Raiders is the first one. Broncos favored by 5.5. We saw this game. I think it was week 5. Denver absolutely destroyed the Raiders. It's 34-10 before a backdoor touchdown +2 for the Raiders. I think it's just a really rough matchup for Gardner Minshew. He couldn't do anything against the Broncos defense. This is another bad quarterback versus top defense. The Broncos get pressure more than most teams in the NFL. And if you look at Gardner Minshew's, his dichotomy between kept clean and pressured, there's a 33.5% completion rate difference from when he's kept clean to pressured. Now, there's a downgrade. There's a downgrade to every quarterback when they're pressured, obviously, but a 33.5% drop off in completion percent is just insane. His YPA drops 2.4 yards. He's just so bad on the pressure. We know he can be an interception machine. We saw him throw a bunch of picks against the Rams, who also get after the quarterback a lot. So I think Minshew is just going to be just rattled here, and we know how Denver handles these bad quarterbacks. So they played 4 bad quarterbacks this year. They were Justin Fields, Gardner Minshew, Spencer Rattler, and Bryce Young. They're 3-1 straight up, and it gets spread against them. The only loss was to Justin Fields in week 2, and that was Bo Nix's second start. It was a 13-6 game, so they held the Steelers to 13 points. So they had a chance there to at least tie at the end. But they're a better team now. I know they had an ugly loss to the Ravens, but they bounced back well. Like they should have beaten the Chiefs. Then they slaughtered Atlanta. The team is getting better each week. I think Denver just takes it to the Raiders here. This is a hated rivalry. I know Denver already beat the Raiders once, but as long as it's under a touchdown, I think it's fine. I like the Raiders quite a bit. What do you think? I mean, Broncos quite a bit. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side because I'm getting suckered into these home dog big spreads with bad quarterbacks. But I don't think Minshew is as bad as some of the quarterbacks you listed, like Rattler and Bryce Young. Now, he's certainly had some bad moments. He's also had some okay moments. Now, in that game that they got blown out a few weeks ago, remember that game was 10-3. Yeah, Minshew threw a 100-yard pick 6. They were on the goal line. They were about to score. I think that was a first down pick 6, if I'm not mistaken. And if it's 17-3, that's a whole different game. And then, of course, after that, I mean, the game was over. Denver just went on a roll after that. Denver's off of a blowout win. I don't like the spot for Denver. And I don't think that the Raiders, even with their record, with them firing a lot of the coaching staff, I certainly don't think they've quit yet. I know there's no home field advantage here. There'll be definitely more Broncos fans in Vegas than Raider fans. And to give the Broncos credit, as a favorite, they're 4-0 straight up. They're 4-0 against the spread. And they're not just winning games by a little. They're winning games by 16, 23, 14, and 32 points. So granted, those were against generally bad teams. Of course, the Raiders would qualify as a bad team. Maybe Atlanta's not a bad team, but they're certainly below average. Bo Nix is playing great. Can't fault him. He's limiting his turnovers. He's hitting a high percentage of his passes. He's got only 2 picks in his last 9 games. Denver's, of course, 6-3 in those games. But like I said, this is a divisional game. Brock Bowers is playing well. The Raiders were in the game against Miami last week before we talked about the Miami game before that late penalty. So they were only down by 5 in that game. And I think that they could keep this game relatively close. I mean, this is a hated rivalry. I know people have Denver and they're a playoff team right now, and I wasn't buying it. Certainly they're playing a lot better, proving me wrong. But I still think this is a divisional game where I'm getting 5 points, and I'm going to lean Raiders. I don't know that this is a contest play. I know we're on the other side of this. I highlighted this game as like a really outskirts. I made this line 3.5. And I saw 5.5, even without the home field advantage. I think this is one of those like 24-22, lower scoring. I don't think Denver's running away like they did in the first game. And like I said, that 100-yard pick 6, that's a major 14-point swing. That really changes a lot there. So for me, I don't love it, but I'm leaning towards the Raiders. I am concerned with the Raiders because the only game they ever care about is the Chiefs. And of course, they play the Chiefs on a short week on Black Friday. Yeah. But given that it's a divisional game, they don't like the Raiders. They're coming off of a loss. Maybe they focus first on Denver here, and they don't have to win the game. I don't think they will win the game, but I certainly think this game could be close. And I think they're alive to win the game. I'm certainly not buying Denver as this juggernaut now that's going to continue winning games by margin. So we'll see where that lands. But once again, I'm kind of sucked into these home dogs getting 3.5 to 7 points.
Yeah, I'm not buying Denver as a juggernaut, but I'm buying Denver's defense as a juggernaut, especially against bad quarterbacks. And I agree that Minshew is not as bad as those other guys, but Minshew, when pressured, is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Just I encourage anyone just to look at I think it's Pro Football Focus. They break down how a quarterback does when pressured versus when not pressured, or blitz when not blitz. Like the dichotomy between pressured and not pressured is just so vast. I don't think I've seen a dichotomy like that from anyone else. So as long as they can get after him, I think he could just have a meltdown and maybe throw another pick six. So John Sanders 411 super chat. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. Predictions for 5, 6, and 7 seeds in the AFC. I feel like 2 of these are almost locked in. Yep. Obviously one of these teams could suffer major injuries and just collapse for that reason. But the Chargers and the Ravens, or if you want to say Steelers, if the Ravens come back and win the division. So it's going to be one of those or 2 of those 3 teams with the 5 and 6 seeds. As far as the 7 seed is concerned, so
Denver and Cincinnati.
Yeah, so Denver right now is 6 and 5, and then you have the Colts at 5 and 6. You have the Dolphins 4 and 6, Bengals 4 and 7, and then I don't know if you want to count the Jets 3 and 8.
No, I'm not going to count the Jets.
No,
I'm not going to count. I'm not going to count Miami either. I'm going to look. It's probably going to be, given the schedules, it's probably going to be Denver or Cincinnati.
Why not? Why aren't you counting Miami? Out of curiosity.
Why am I counting Miami? Yeah. I think Miami's probably going to go to 8 wins. Let me look at Miami's schedule. And we said we have Miami. I have Miami under 9.5 wins for the season. I also played back over 7.5 wins a couple of weeks ago. So I think they win this week, although I do like New England. Certainly think they're alive. I like Green Bay next week. So what's Miami's record right now? What do you say? Where they were 4
and 6. So they go to 5 and 7.
Give them a win now. They're the old Mike and the Mad Dog. That's a win. New England win 5 and 6 at Green Bay. Loss 5 and 7. They'll beat the Jets 6 and 7. They'll lose to Houston 6 and 8. They'll beat the Niners if the Niners lead by 10. But if the Niners keep the game close or fall behind, maybe they lose. Yeah, those last 3 games, what do we say, 6? At best, they're a 9-win team.
Yeah.
At best, they're 9 wins. They're probably an 8-win team. I like my under 9.5 and over 7.5. I'm looking forward to middling that game, that bet. But they can lose at Cleveland. They can lose at the Jets. I'm not going to certainly give them a guaranteed win, although that Week 18, the Jets just may not show up and tackle anybody. So they'll be underdogs to the Niners. They'll be underdogs at Green Bay, and they'll be underdogs at Houston. Cleveland, who knows? They'll be favored against Cleveland, but maybe Cleveland can give them a game. I still feel like Cincinnati somehow, some way is going to get there.
Okay.
At least ahead of Miami. Denver right now, given what happened last week, I was on Atlanta and I was on Cincinnati, so I was wrong on both. And Denver kind of took a commanding lead. Also, remember, Denver plays Kansas City in Week 18. And Week 18, Kansas City potentially has the 1 seed wrapped up. They're not playing anybody in that game. Denver has Vegas, and the next week they play Cleveland on Monday Night Football. They play Indy out of their bye. Well, Denver plays at Cincinnati. That's a big game. There you go. The winner of that game, I think, is the wild card. I think that's the 7th seed.
Is Cincinnati going to be favored in every game down the stretch, except for Week 18 at Pittsburgh, which might be the backups?
Cincinnati is going to be favored against Pitt. Well, they are. What is this? They're favored against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They're going to be favored at Dallas. Oh, Monday Night Football. By the way, they can't flex that game. Did you see that? I don't know if you saw that.
I look forward to it. I can't wait.
They're not going to flex that game. There's something because like Nickelodeon or something, some other graphic content is being prepared. So Dallas is going to be Monday Night Football in 2 weeks. Look forward to that.
Nice.
Cincinnati plays at Tennessee. They're certainly favored there. They can be favored against Cleveland. They can be favored at home against Denver. That might be like a Saturday night game.
Yeah.
And then at Pittsburgh is going to be a big game for them.
It could be Pittsburgh's backups if they lock up the division.
It could be Pittsburgh. I don't think they'll have the division locked up by then.
Oh, it's the fun.
They'll have to beat Baltimore. Pittsburgh will have to win in Baltimore to lock up the division.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But if they do, like,
Okay.
they'll
So theoretically, and that's why I think Cincinnati and Denver will both be ahead, given that they play each other and Denver potentially has a freebie in week 18. I don't think any of these other teams will get ahead of them. What's Denver right now? Denver is 6-5.
it's fine. Yeah.
They win this week,
So they only have to
7-5,
catch.
8-5.
So they have to catch Denver by one game. Assuming they beat Denver. So
I mean,
it's
Indy's
very
not out
doable.
of it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
too early. I love the NFL playoff machine. By like week
I know.
14, I spend like an hour just playing around with all these various
Me too.
permutations on wins with the NFL ESPN playoff machine. It's way too early for that.
Yeah. I love that too. So with that in mind, Bengals plus 440 to make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's not bad. But
Yeah.
again, they kind of need to run the table.
Mhm.
So we talked about mechanical parlays last week
Right.
with some
Right.
other type of bets. You're better off playing the Bengals to win. It's like, well, the money line is too expensive. Don't worry about the money line. The Bengals have to win these games. I would play the Bengals on the money line. Um, I mean, they have to beat Pittsburgh. What's the line in that game? I think we saw the look ahead already
It's
for next week.
Bengals minus 2.5.
Bengals minus 2.5. I made the line 2.5, and I played minus 2.5. So play the money line before you play plus 440. They have to win that game. They can't lose that game. They'll for sure be out of it if they lose that game. Where's my standings here? Cincinnati. I mean, if they drop to 4-8, forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it. So don't play plus 440. Just play them next week, win, and roll it over. And then you get to roll it over against Dallas.
It's free money. Just bet the alt lines too. They'll come through.
Everything.
Last fantasy question. Start two full PPR. Ridley versus Houston. Sutton versus Raiders. Dubs versus San Francisco. Tillman versus Pittsburgh. Well, again, the wind and rain. So Tillman's out for me.
That's an easy Ridley.
Yes, we'll
Oh, no.
start two.
Sutton Vegas is not bad.
You have to start two.
Oh,
So
Ridley and Sutton.
Ridley and Sutton. I
That's a
agree.
no-brainer.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Let's see here as we get to the next game. Cardinals at the Seahawks. It's a pick 'em. Now there might be. I feel like Arizona is the team that is least likely to benefit from a bye because we know that Kyler Murray tends to get distracted with Call of Duty and stuff. So he's playing video games all week. I imagine that he may not be prepared for this game. I do like Arizona though. Like all kidding aside. Seattle is just not that good of a team. They're actually ranked 29th in EPA. Like the metrics absolutely hate Seattle despite the win that they had at San Francisco. Now you're going to completely disagree with this.
Correct.
What'd you say?
Correct.
Correct what?
Correct. I'm going to disagree.
Okay. Well, so the projected lines for this game. So I made Arizona minus 1.5. I just think Arizona's better than Seattle. The EPA says this line should be Arizona minus 10. So ridiculous this is. Arizona is ranked. I think they're like number 5 in EPA, if I remember correctly. Let me see. They are number 4. They're the number 4 team in EPA. They're ranked number 1 in offense and number 15 in defense. So that puts them at number 4 overall. Seattle is ranked 29th. They are 30th in offense and 23rd in defense. Really, that 23rd could even be lower. Not a fan of the defense at all. So. Yeah, I mean, just if you believe in the metrics, Arizona is definitely on the right side. I don't fully trust it, but like I said, I still think Arizona is the better team. And Seattle's coming off a win. Bad teams going off wins. I know Seattle's not that bad, but still, I want to fade them after that win at San Francisco. So it's Arizona for me. What do you like here?
So I have these two teams equal. I
Okay.
don't believe in some of those EPA numbers. I think these two teams are equal. Obviously, Seattle coming off a big win to save their season. They still need this game to continue to save their season. I don't like teams coming off a bye with a streak of wins, even one win, but they've won now 4 straight. They're 7-3, right? And 7-3 against the spread as well.
It was 6-4.
We said this last week with Arizona. They easily could have lost. I'm sorry, they're 6-5, 7-3 against the spread, but they're 6-4 straight up.
Mm-hmm.
That 6-4 can easily be 3-7. The Niners blew the game against them. They came back and won that game. They somehow found a way to beat Miami. I remember I had that game as a plus points, which I would have covered either way. But there was a snap that went over to his head in that game, and they came down and won that game. Give them credit for doing what they needed to do. And in the Charger game, the Chargers were a play away from getting a first down and kicking a game-winning field goal. Instead, they got stopped. kick the field goal. And then again, credit Arizona for coming down and making plays and kicking a game-winning field goal. But those are 3 50-50 games, and if their record were 3-7 as opposed to 6-4, I don't think you would be saying that they're clearly the better team. Now, I was looking at the games just in general. Seattle, obviously, they lost to the Rams. Geno had a good comeback drive to tie the game late. When their 3 receivers are on the field, I think the advantage is for them to be able to move the football. The advantage Arizona has is they're going to run the football, and they're the number 2 rushing offense against, I have Seattle, number 25 against the yards per carry. But I really like the passing game for Seattle with their 3 receivers. Geno has now 7 game-winning drives in the last 2 seasons, fourth quarter overtime. That's tied most in the league. You wouldn't have thought that. Geno has been very good in these crucial situations late in games or in overtime. He's come through. So this is not the Geno of old. This is a guy who's now, his team believes in him. He believes in himself, and he's been very good. He's been really good. Now the Niners last week, I don't want to get started on a Niner rant. They're playing prevent defense at the end of that game. So I don't care who was playing quarterback. You're going to have the open lanes to run the ball and move the ball. But Seattle's now won 5 straight games against Arizona. Only 3 of those 5 were Geno against Kyler. So it's not 5-0 in this quarterback matchup. It's not a great spot for either team, but I like the spot less for Arizona coming off the bye. And like I said, I have these 2 teams equal. I have Seattle with a 1.5 home field advantage. I'm considering this as a contest play, although I don't really want this as a contest play. It's probably like a number 8 or 9 kind of fringe for me. I don't find really any value here in a pick'em type of game. But I think Seattle continues to save their season, and they need this game more. I don't like picking a team because they need a game more. They need a game, obviously, for a reason they need the game more. But I lean to Seattle. Seattle at home. And I would look for weather in this situation as well. I don't know what the weather it's too early for the weather report, but if there's a chance of rain in Seattle, I don't really want Kyler running around in the rain. Although you can make an argument that maybe it's better for the run game in that situation. But I like Seattle in this spot. And
okay.
Again, not a huge, hey, we have to take this, or this is, Arizona's the wrong side. But I lean to Seattle.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you have a stronger opinion on this one than I do. I'm just very neutral to this one. Although I do have Arizona 10 spots ahead of Seattle in my power rankings.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I know Seattle has won some games earlier in the year against bad teams and then didn't play well in certain games, got blown out by Buffalo, got blown out in Atlanta. But when they have their 3 receivers on the field, they're moving the ball. And Arizona, you can't argue the fact that 3 of their wins are real coin flips that probably should have gone the other way. They caught Chicago in a great spot. They caught the Jets in a game where the Jets just had no interest whatsoever. And I just think this is a division. I see here Arizona minus 115 to win the division. I think this division is going to be a mess. They're now 6-4. If Seattle wins this game, both teams are 6-5. Niners and Rams right there, 5-5. So they'll be 6-5 or 5-6. I think there's going to be a mess at in this division. Someone's going to win this division with 9 wins. You could bet the Niners right now under 9.5. That's a side point. We'll get to that. But someone's going to win this division with 9 wins, and I'm still not a believer in Arizona being that real quality team. I think both of these teams are like the definition of average. But I like what Geno's done offensively in the passing game, and I still don't like Arizona's pass defense. So I like Seattle at home. Big game. This is a real big game in that could be raining. And they've won 5 in a row against the Cardinals. I'm not such a trend person, but in the NFC West, it's weird. Like one team owns the next. A over B, B over C, C over A, and this is one of those matchups where Seattle has been winning the last couple of years.
Yeah, for me, I agree what you said about the receivers. Although I'm concerned with their offensive lineman, their center retiring. I hate their defense though. Seattle's defense. So they just can't stop the run at all. And James Conner is going to run. I feel like
that's going to be the matchup deficiency is the run defense.
Yeah. Jesse Cintron, 415 super chat. Thank you so much, Jesse. Really appreciate it. NFC West odds here. Arizona minus 115, San Francisco San Francisco 3-1, Rams 5-1, Seahawks 6-1. The Rams look the best there. However, they play the Eagles this week. Get to that game in a few minutes. So you
For
might want
me,
to.
if you ask me to take a bet on this now, I'm playing Seattle at 6-1
Okay.
because I believe they'll win this week. And that let me just quickly pull up their divisional records. Obviously, I know they beat the Niners and lost to Niners, so they're 1-1 in that matchup. Seattle in the division's 1-2. If they win this week, they're 2-2. The Rams, like you said, have a tougher schedule down the road. Seattle and Arizona play again in 2 weeks. So Seattle now gets Arizona, then they get at the Jets and back to Arizona. So you'll know a lot more about Seattle. If Seattle wins these 3 games, they'll be in the driver's seat. I just think this is the type of division where you're going to flip flop some of these. Now, obviously, if Seattle loses this week, they're done. So, but when in a situation where you're, 4 teams are all basically even, same record, and I'm getting one of them at 6-1, that's not bad. But I don't like either of these because I'm not playing Arizona now minus. That's terrible value.
Yeah.
The real value here is in the Niners, but we'll get to the Niners next. And I'm just an angry Niner fan, so I wouldn't take the Niners. I like Seattle here. Therefore, if I'm getting 6-1, if they win this game and the Rams and Niners both lose this week, they might be favored next week.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the 6-1 may come into play. But I don't think this is one of those where you can kind of like hedge in and out of it. So for me, it's about win totals, and I don't like this divisional bet.
So what I was saying was like the Rams play the Eagles this week. So if they lose, you might get you're almost certain to get better odds next week on the Rams. But if you want to sprinkle a little bit, if you think the Rams beat the Eagles, maybe sprinkle a bit here, and then if they lose, then you could make like the normal bet you would have made next week with better odds. I think the Rams are the best team out of these 4, as long as the receivers are healthy. Their defense is coming on. Sean McVay is a great coach. Now, against the schedule is a little tougher, but I like I said, I do think they're the better team. So, and they'll have a chance to beat Arizona. They'll get revenge. So that's where I would go. But I think you make a good point at Seattle having the easier, short-term schedule here. So, all right. Thank you. So again, thank you so much, Jesse. All right, let's get to the you kind of mentioned it. Niners at the Packers. This line went from -1.5 to 2.5. The Niners have a lot of injuries, so they didn't have Nick Bosa on the field late last week. George Kittle obviously missed the game. Trent Williams didn't practice at all last week. He played, but he just wasn't 100%. Aaron Banks as well, their talented guard. He barely practiced, and he's just kind of laboring through that injury. And then suddenly we have news that Brock Purdy is dealing with a shoulder injury, and he's day to day or whatever they call him. So yeah, he'll probably play this game, but he may not be 100% depending on what the injury is exactly. So this is just a really tough spot here for the Niners, who have some issues. I mean, you've detailed them over the weeks. Like the red zone offense is dreadful. It was first last year. I think it's around 28th this year. And I thought McCaffrey returning might help, but it really hasn't. And so you'll touch on this more, but Kyle Shanahan just not coaching like very well in game decision making. So I like Green Bay here to get revenge. Now, it's not an ideal spot for Green Bay because they have to play on Thanksgiving night, but this is such a big game for them that I think that they will focus, unlike some of the other big favorites that we talked about earlier heading into Thanksgiving. So I like the Packers a little bit here, and it's helped that the public is all over the Niners. Like this is a huge public bet, publicly sided bet team this week, San Francisco, despite all the injuries.
Now up to 2.5. Why is this a publicly bet game?
Just based on the amount of bets coming in on the Niners. 80,
the line's
80.
moving. The line's been moving 1.5 to now.
Yeah, the sharp money in Green Bay. 84% of tickets are on San Francisco. So which is pretty wild. So who do you like this game? I imagine it's Green Bay, right?
Injuries aside, I lean to Green Bay really because of the trust factor. Now, first of all, the Niners are the best team in the division. They should be 8-2. They blew these games. They're more talented than these other teams. They're better than these other teams. We all know they're better than these other teams, but they're not winning games. And at the end of the day, the season's a short season. They're off of another pathetic blown game. And this is now, it's not about metrics. It's not about EPA. It's not about yards or any stats. It's about one thing. The in-game coaching, they lack urgency. They lack killer instinct, right? We know they're going to have success moving the football. Green Bay is also going to have success moving the football. Obviously, we'll get to the injuries. If Bosa doesn't play, that's a big loss. Certainly, if Kittle doesn't play, it's a big loss. I fully expect Trent Williams to play. I fully expect Purdy to play. I'm not going to make excuses for those guys who may or may not be slightly banged up. It's the in-game lack of killer instinct where this team just lacks fire. They lack passion. Situational defense. Last week, they went into this shell at the end of the game. But before they went into a prevent defense, up by 4 with 3 minutes to go, they had the ball with 5 minutes to go. And they picked up a first down on first down. And then they had a loss of 1. And it's 2nd and 11 with 4 minutes left. And Seattle called time. And they come out and it's a bad pass play. And then another short passing play. And it's 4th and 6. And here comes the punter. Punting into the end zone. You're gaining 25 yards of field possession. And then you're in prevent. So this is bananas to me. This just doesn't make any sense. If you're in prevent, go for 4th and 6. I get it. It's 4th and 6. It's not 4th and 2 or 4th and 1. He would have punted anyway, 4th and 2, that jerk, Shanahan. But 4th and 6, you know you're going to give up. In 2 plays, they gave up 25 yards. You're right back into the spot where you would have gone for it. If you go for it and they get it, the game's over. But they never do that. And that's why you can't trust this team. We could talk all about red zone. We could talk about how good or bad the offense might be playing or what kind of defense the defense was in there in a cover 3 on the goal line, which makes absolutely no sense. Either go man or sit back in a little bit more of a zone. They went cover 3, which has the deep third of the field is covered. And the underneath is all following like a man-to-man, and that leaves Geno Smith wide open to run 20 yards into the end zone. So the coaching has been terrible in-game. They're obviously not as bad as their record. Green Bay is not as good as their record. Green Bay should have lost last week. Let's be fair. Jordan Love has played fewer games than some of the other quarterbacks. He's tied with the most interceptions in the league. Tied with Mahomes. Who else is he tied with? I think he's tied with Mahomes, and he's tied with Geno for the most picks in the league, but he's played a couple of fewer games. Red zone, both teams rank at the bottom of the league, 26th and 27th, respectively, in red zone offense. Now, in the past, Shanahan generally had LaFleur's number. A lot of that is pre-snap motion. Green Bay has been weak to pre-snap motion. They've been weak to the middle of the field, which is where Shanahan likes to attack. So we know the Niners are going to move the ball. But if they have a lead, they're going to blow it because they're not going to go for 4th down. They're going to kick a short field goal instead of going for a touchdown and going for 4 instead of taking 3. So these factors throughout the season, every week we say they're the better team. They should easily win. They should easily cover. They should easily beat Tampa Bay by 6.5. They should easily beat Seattle by 6.5. Yet every week I tell you one of my top picks is the opponent because we know they're going to blow the game. We know the back door is always open, and we know they're not winning by margin anymore. So the wheels are coming off here. I mean, this is now a must-win. The Niners play back-to-back road games against Buffalo and Green Bay. Obviously, if they lose these 2 games, they're done, which is why I said earlier I like the under 9.5 wins. I really hope they can win this game as a fan, split the next 2 games, keep pace with the rest of the division. But if they lose this game and they're going to Buffalo, the only thing I can say good about the Buffalo game in 2 weeks is that Buffalo is now coming off a bye and a win against Kansas State. Buffalo just won their Super Bowl, so they're partying right now. So maybe Buffalo comes out somewhat flat in 2 weeks and the Niners have a shot, but they certainly have the talent to turn this around. A couple of years ago, they were a couple of games under 500, and they ran the table en route to a Super Bowl run. So they have the talent to do it, but why bet on the coach changing his tune? He's not going to change his tune. This is one of the league leaders in blown games, starting with 28-3 a couple of years ago with Atlanta as coordinator. He blew a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs first time around. He blew a lead in the Super Bowl last year. He has taken his foot off the gas. They blew a championship game against the Rams a couple of years ago with a lead. So we can't just all of a sudden snap and say, Shanahan's going to go for 4th and 2. Shanahan's going to not punt on 4th and 6 with a chance to win the game. So all those factors, you can't trust this team. I have to lean Green Bay, but there's no value here in the number. This is a pick'em type of spot. If I was getting 3.5 in the past, the Niners are favored by 3.5 points. I'm getting points with the opponent. I'm taking the points. So I'm certainly not looking to play Green Bay in a contest, but from a pool perspective, I'm picking Green Bay. I'm not rooting for Green Bay. I'm hoping that Shanahan, something changes, something clicks. Or McCaffrey finally breaks one of these and they get a big enough lead like they did against Dallas when they almost blew that game. Where Seattle, they had a big enough lead the first time around, but they couldn't blow the game. They blew the cover, but they couldn't blow the game. So let's see now what Shanahan does, but that's what it's all about. It's not about metrics, not about EPA, not about yards per play. It's about on 4th and 2, what are you going to do? Are you going for it or not? And until he starts to show that he's going for it, this is not a playoff team.
You mentioned the blown 28-3. You realize it's almost a decade ago at this point. It's crazy. It feels like it happened almost yesterday. It's like 8 years. So it's insane how quickly time goes. We had a question from a Niner fan, Jesse, asking, who would you replace on the current prospective market?
So I joke around and I argue with my brothers and my family and some other Niner fan friends. Listen, Shanahan's a great coach. The team comes out, they're prepared. Their first drive is usually a very good drive. They bypass their down, they move the ball, they come out of halftime, do the same thing. It's what makes me crazy is the 4th downs. Now in the Super Bowl last year, he actually went for it. There was a 4th and 3 late in the game that he went for. I was very proud of him, and they got it, and it really changed things late in the game. Of course, in overtime, he kicked the field goal at the 8-yard line, giving the ball back to Mahomes in 4-down territory. That was pretty dumb. You got to go for it and take your chances, get it or not. I wouldn't fire Shanahan. I'm not here calling that Shanahan should be fired. Listen, I would love to have Belichick, but he's not the long-term solution. I think Vrabel's a great coach. Totally different type of team, different type of mindset. Shanahan is Andy Reid, right? He's eventually going to win a Super Bowl. I believe that. I believe at some point in his career, and he's not an old guy. Shanahan's like 45. So he's got a long way to go. I strongly believe that this is going to be a Super Bowl winning coach, just like Andy Reid was. Now, granted, Andy Reid got Mahomes. I like Purdy, but Purdy's not Mahomes. So there's a difference, obviously. So we're not trying to compare the two quarterbacks and the situations. But I think I always thought Andy Reid was a good coach. The clock management was haunted Reid in Philly, and he's still not good with clock management, but he has Mahomes. Shanahan doesn't know how to coach in game. He doesn't know how to go for it. The Niners need to be good enough to bypass these 4th and 2s. They got to get a first down on 3rd down. They got to get a first down on 2nd down. So I wouldn't fire him. I wouldn't look to replace him. But no, see, Ben Johnson, again, same idea. I love Ben Johnson, very creative. But we don't know. First of all, nobody knows what Ben Johnson is going to be like as a head coach as far as his aggressiveness. We would assume, like Dan Campbell, that he would be aggressive. But we don't know for sure. I mean, Brandon Staley was like that in his first year with the Chargers. He was like crazy, going for everything. And then he got confused, and then he got criticized in the media. By the way, Brandon Staley's on the Niners staff. I don't know what he's doing or what he's not doing. But no, I would keep Shanahan. At some point, they have to figure out that punting and kicking short field goals is not going to win games, especially against Mahomes and even against Geno Smith, who, like I said, with the Seattle game, has 7 game-winning or game-tying touchdowns in the 4th quarter overtime. You can't punt in this league. The rules are too easy for the offense on 4-down territory to move the ball. The worst league we joke around is 6. If you're up 3 late in the game and you kick a field goal, shame on you. There's nothing worse than going up by 6. I'd rather be up by 3. So the Niners need to figure that out. At some point, they have to have somebody in the analytics department before they pay Purdy $50 million and lose half their good players or the rest of their good players. They need to figure out, and it starts now. They got to win these games, and it's got to be aggressive. It's got to be urgency. It's got to have killer instinct, and I hope that it changes. But right now, as far as picking games, betting on games, you can't bet or pick what hasn't been the case. So until you see that change, for me, it's pick Green Bay. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't tease it. And again, look in game. Niners up by 7, 10 points. You got to bet against it. Auto bet. Green Bay 3.5, Green Bay 7.5. Automatic when they're down, halftime. If the Niners come out strong, that's the way to bet this game is in game.
Yeah, credit to Sean McDermott who didn't take the field goal.
That was the game. Exactly. That's exactly right. And if they didn't get it, so be it. Right? Mahomes is going to get the ball back, and they're probably going to drive the field and win the game. But if you kick a field goal there, and Mahomes drives the field 4-down territory, down 5, and gets a touchdown, every single person's asking, let Josh Allen decide that game. I give him credit. He finally that's exactly the right move. Even if it's 4th and 5, you have to put the game in the hands of the MVP right now. Is Josh Allen's the MVP today? That's what you have to do. You cannot kick. Because first of all, he probably would have missed the kick, right? And then you give them another 8 yards of field possession. But you don't want to go up 5. It's just you got to end the game on your own terms. and these coaches need to realize that. They're
Yeah.
just scared.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, let's get to the Sunday night game with Eagles at the Rams. I had a tough time handicapping this one. I like both teams. I've been on both teams quite a bit. Eagles since the bye. I said back then I thought that they would rebound because they just had way too much talent to just be 2-2 and struggle in some of these games. And they've won 6 in a row. I think the only game in which I didn't back them was I think the Cincinnati game, but other than that, I've been on the Eagles, and then I've been on the Rams ever since they got the receivers back. So these are two of my favorite teams that I've been backing recently, and so it's kind of like you have to pick between like your two kids. Like, who do you like better? It's like I don't know. Right? Yeah, you just can't. So I don't. I think this line is where it should be, around where it should be. I actually made this Eagles -2. So this is a little high, so that might say the Rams, but I just think the Eagles are better here. And I think that matchup-wise, I think they can take advantage of a couple areas where the Rams are a little weak. Against the tight ends, I think Dallas Goedert could have a big game here. And I think the Rams' pass rush was just really the strength. Like the Eagles can pass protect pretty well, keep Jalen Hurts safe, and kind of neutralize that. So I'm on the Eagles, but not ready to bet this at all. Where are you coming in on this one?
So I'm on the Eagles also. Sunday Night Football has just killed me. Like I said before, I think I'm 4-1 again in contest play, losing Sunday Night Football. So I don't know. Mike Tirico and Collinsworth, they just don't like me that much. To me in this game, the line's right, but I think the spot is better here for Philly. Extra rest, even though they're off a big win, they got some extra rest. The Rams are off a win, but they didn't look so great in that game. I wasn't overly impressed with what I saw from that team. They certainly weren't good the week before on Monday night when I picked them, and they kind of got killed in that game. I think the matchup really favors Philly. You've said this a few times with Philly's defense, especially their pass defense, is number one. So the Rams really, even with both of their receivers, they really haven't been tested. Now, you can make the argument that Philly's defense hasn't really been tested against two really strong receivers. So I think that might be an interesting matchup. They're the number 2 ranked defense overall. Philly also is number 3 ranked rushing offense. Saquon's been amazing lately. I mean, he's been making incredible plays, chunks of yardage. The Rams to me look kind of slow offensively. I feel like I'm finding them in third and medium a lot. Not a lot of explosive plays, whereas the Eagles have been the opposite with explosives. The Rams also have been 27th in third down offense this season. Last week, they were 2 for 8 on third down, unimpressive. The week before, they were 3 for 12, but they were really 1 for 10. They were 2 for 2 late in the game in garbage time, really, when they were down 2 scores. So they were 1 for 10 on third down before that. And Philly's an above average third down team. So a lot of these games really just come down to these third downs. Can the team extend drives? And Philly, of course, goes far on fourth down. So that's going to be a huge discrepancy in this game, being able to extend drives and move the ball. Philly's been on a roll lately, let's be fair. Won 6 straight, 5 of those games. I mean, after the Browns game, which was a close game, the last 5 games, they've really controlled the game. I mean, some of those games got a little close at the end. Like Jacksonville somehow made that game close at the end. But they've really controlled the game. So I like the 3 here. I don't think I would lay this at 3.5. At 2.5, I really like Philly. At 3, I still lean Philly. At 3.5, I wouldn't bet it. But at 3, I might consider it. If it's 2.5, it's going to be on the card. Sunday Night Football will be damned. 3, I might lay off. But then again, I'm considering some of those other home ugly underdogs. And I kind of have more confidence in the Eagles winning the game outright. So 2.5 for sure. 3, maybe. I think it's going to be a good game. I think Philly continues to run. They're the better team. And they're right now kind of proving that they're going to be the number 2 team in the NFC. I certainly like Detroit over Philly. But if there's one team that's going to give Detroit, a run right now to upset your Super Bowl futures, Philly would be the team that I look out for.
I bet the Eagles to win the Super Bowl before the season started. So I'll be happy. I'll be happy with that one too. Yeah. Actually stand to win more with the Eagles than the Lions. So, so I hope for your sake this line is 3, so you don't have to take the Eagles in the contest and sweat out another Tirico game. He's right. He has it out for you. I don't know why, but
he doesn't like me.
No, he doesn't.
I really thought I was going to come back with the Bengals the other night when they tied that game.
Yeah.
I mean, but the Bengals don't play this week, so we can briefly touch on. We saw this problem happen in week 5, and it happened the other night. Zach Taylor gets to the 35, and just does he think he has an automatic kicker there? Because he did this in week 5. They get to the 35 in overtime, run, field goal, shanked. The other night, they finally come back. They try to move the ball at will. Moving the ball, Chargers kind of turn the engine off. McPherson comes out, miss. Gets the ball back. Gets to the same spot in the field. Run. I don't remember the exact sequence, but we're at the 35. Great, we're in field goal range. Another miss. Like, what are we doing here? I actually bet live that game would go to overtime. I got like a 6-1 shot on overtime. I think when the game was a 7-point game. So I was rooting for my contest pick, but I was rooting to win in overtime. I figured if they make the field goal late, San Diego, LA has a chance to come down and tie the game. And we're going to go to overtime and see what happens. But it's just mind-boggling with these coaches. Again, just a coach that is completely clueless, doesn't know his team. And again, lost the Sunday night contest pick.
It's brutal. I thought they'd come back and win too. So now we have this Monday night game. The Chargers hosting another AFC North team, Ravens at the Chargers. I already gave my spiel on this game when we had that super chat. Once again, thank you, Joe Fascio. Really appreciate it. Or Joe Fascio's wife. I really appreciate it. It's a brief summary. I like the Chargers here. I think they're underrated. I think the Ravens a little overrated here with their bad defense. I like Herbert being able to take advantage of these situations, and I think that this line is a little too heavy in favor of Baltimore. Baltimore has been a very public team, and the Chargers continue to be underrated. I continue to back them almost every week, so I will do it again. So curious to hear who you have in this game.
Yeah, so to me, this is about the spot, and I'm slowly coming around to your point of view on the Chargers, that they're better than I thought. I actually have them now in the top 10 finally for the first time all year. I have them 9th. I still have Baltimore as a top 3 team. I know their secondary is bad, but their secondary played well last week. I mean, granted, it was against Russell Wilson, but they were very good defensively. They held Pittsburgh to 6 field goals. 2 of them were on, obviously, turnover short fields. They really only held Pittsburgh to 4 field goals in the entire game. So credit to them on that defensive performance. But they're off a bad loss. And they outplayed Pittsburgh. They had 6.1 to 4.1 yards per play. Like I said, they gave up 0 touchdowns. They had the 2 fumbles. Tucker forgot how to kick, so that's another problem. A lot of dumb luck for teams that play Pittsburgh, besides for the fumbles. There was one really nice wheel route to Justice Hill, if you're picturing the play, where the Pittsburgh defender had his back to Lamar, put his hands up, and as the ball kind of came into Justice Hill's hands, I think it was Peyton Hillis. Is that who it is?
Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson.
Yeah, NC State.
Just takes it out of his hands. So just a lot of weird plays. Again, you got to credit Pittsburgh for making the plays, but a lot of weird plays here, but off a really, really bad loss. And I still think Baltimore is one of the top teams in the league. And I'm not surprised where this line is, given where I moved the Chargers to. I think the line should be in that 3. I think you had it more Chargers as a favorite. Mm-hmm. But if you think the Chargers should be favored, that means you probably have the Chargers ahead of Baltimore in your power ratings. Is that the case?
I have the Ravens 5th, the Chargers 6th.
Okay, so then I don't give any home field advantage for the Chargers, so I don't know how the Chargers become a favorite in the game. But for me, again, we give the Chargers credit. They went to sleep with the lead. It's not like they blew the game. They went to sleep with the lead, and credit them for now finding a way. Once they did get the ball back after the missed field goals, they were able to drive the field, score, and win. So credit Herbert played great. Herbert looks like the Herbert that we remembered the pre-Harbaugh days when he's not allowing him to do anything. I think in this game it's going to have to be Herbert. I think Baltimore's run defense has proven to be very good. They have the number 1 overall rushing defense by yards per carry in the league. So, and that's what Harbaugh wants to do, but certainly we've seen, even though it was against Cincinnati's defense, I still give Herbert a lot of credit for the way he's played in the last few weeks. Like I said, I finally moved them into the top 10. I think Baltimore's the better team. I expect them to bounce back. To me, it's about the spot. National TV, off of a really bad performance, scoring-wise. 16 points, their lowest output of the season. And I expect them to win, to come back in this game. I love the over. I think they're going to put up points. I think there's going to be big plays. And I think they're going to give up some big plays in the passing game. I think the over-under in here opened at 50.5. I think it's up to 51 right now. And or was that a different game? What's the over-under in this game? Let me take a
Yeah,
quick
50,
look.
50 and a half.
Oh, yeah, 50. Okay, 50. I like that over. I
Okay.
think this is a game that could be one of those really, really classic shootouts that Baltimore's been a part of, other when they play Pittsburgh. I think this could be one of those. So I like Baltimore to win. I'm not afraid of laying the 3 here. I'm comfortable laying the 3 here. I expect them to win this game. If it's by 3 and you get a push, so be it. But I don't. This is where I said to you last week, the Chargers' schedule. We said we're gonna really know what the Chargers are made of in the next couple of weeks, with Cincinnati, Baltimore, at Atlanta, at Kansas City. So these 4 games, this stretch of games is going to be really tough for them. They're coming off the win, Baltimore off the loss. The spot for me is Baltimore. This is going to be a contest pick. This is one of my better plays of the week.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
We're on this one.
What'd you say?
We're on the opposite sides of this one.
We certainly are. A couple things. First of all, why the Ravens, like I said, 5th, the Chargers 6th, but I'm rated equally. And I gave the Chargers half a point for being at home, so there's no minus a half, so just bumped up to 1. The Chargers, EPA wise, they're the number 1 team in the NFL. EPA wise, Ravens are 11th. The metrics have hated the Ravens all year because they're bad defense.
Right, does that take into consideration schedule?
Yeah, it's all adjusted stuff. So
It's adjusted. Okay.
Yeah,
because
so
the Ravens have played this year. Let's look through real quick with the Ravens. Obviously, they lost to Kansas City. They theoretically could have won that game. A toe was out. Throw out the Raider game. Throw out the Dallas game. They killed Buffalo. The Cincinnati games were great games, or divisional games. They put up a lot of points. They gave up a lot of points. They killed them. They took care of business against Denver. And again, I still don't think Denver's as good as most people think, but they absolutely wiped the floor with Denver. The Washington game, they were impressive. I mean, they did what they had to do. They covered that game they pushed that game, or maybe they won that game by a half, depending on where your line was. They put up 40 plus against Tampa Bay. So that was an impressive game. And last week, they didn't score touchdowns at the end of the day, but they really outplayed Pittsburgh 6-4 in yards per play, and some bad luck. The 2 fumbles and the pick. Those 3 plays changed a lot in that game. So I hear you on the EPA. I hear you on the Chargers. But outside of last week, I'm still not impressed with a lot of their games. They took care of business. Give them credit for doing what they had to do. And I'm going to change my tune on this if the Chargers prove me wrong this week. But I wouldn't tease the Chargers. I think this is one of those games where Baltimore comes out and can make a statement. National TV, I think back, if Baltimore is what I think they are, last year and earlier this year, some of the games when they play good competition and they wake up for these games, they can put up 30, 34, 35 points. And I don't know that the Chargers have the capability to do that like Cincinnati did. So I can easily see this game being like a 34-27, 34-23 type of game. And then we'll see. We'll see if the Chargers defense is as good as they are, or if Herbert really shows that he's the better quarterback here and they're the better team. And if they are, you're right. But I need to see it first.
So 2 other points I wanted to make that I didn't when I was talking about this earlier. When we had the super chat, I didn't have my notes right in front of me. One, the Chargers have a lot of former Ravens coaches on their staff, and that includes Greg Roman, yep. Who coached Lamar Jackson very closely. Obviously, he's the offensive coordinator. I think that he might have some inside info there with the Ravens. Now, it's 2 years ago, not last year, so it's not like a huge edge maybe, but again, like there are a lot of coaches here who used to coach for the Ravens, so they might have a good game plan prepared. Another thing to consider is that I've looked back and just checked how the Chargers were against mobile quarterbacks, because obviously you have to know how teams defend mobile quarterbacks since Lamar Jackson. The Chargers have defended mobile quarterbacks very well this year. Now, they haven't played Jackson, but they played Lamar Jackson last year. In that game, the Ravens won 20-10. Justin Herbert was, I think, playing injured in that game. I don't think they had Keenan Allen, or I think Keenan Allen actually got hurt in that game, if I remember correctly. And the Chargers were missing a lot of their other weapons. The team was a mess under Brandon Staley. But still, the point I want to make is that they held the Ravens to 20 points. Lamar Jackson, I believe, only had 39 rushing yards in that game. The Chargers with the 2 great edge rushers with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, they can keep Jackson contained like they do with other mobile quarterbacks. So I don't think Jackson's going to have this great mobile performance that he does against teams that don't really know how to defend him. So I think that the Chargers just have a good schematic matchup in this game on top of everything else. So that's another reason why I like him a lot.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Somebody actually asked before about Herbert rushing last year when they played. Herbert had 4 carries, 47 yards.
Hmm.
Um, if he gets pressured, he's shown the ability to to break the pocket and pick up some real chunks of yards there. So, I just believe that the Ravens are a top team. I'm not ready to believe that the Chargers are that team. I moved the Chargers to number 9, so I have them as a legitimate now, plus 2.5. I still have the Ravens +7. I have the Ravens and Chiefs +7. I have the Lions +8.5. So to me, the Lions are still, a good point and a half better than anybody else. But when the Ravens receivers don't let the ball hit them in the face mask, and when Henry's not fumbling, which he never does, other than when they play Pittsburgh, I really trust Lamar. And before a week ago, he was having the MVP season that Allen's having. They should have been in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago. It was a weird game where Kyle Hamilton dropped the pick late in the game. Also, Kyle Hamilton's banged up. So that's another big thing here to pay attention to. If he's out, he's a legit problem if he's out for that secondary. So I would pay attention to that. It wouldn't be enough for me to get off the game because, again, I don't like their defense. For me, when I'm playing Baltimore, it's a play on their offense. It's a play that they're going to wake up this week and they're going to put up 30 plus. And we'll see. If the Chargers have the defense that everybody thinks they have, I just don't see the Chargers as that team yet.
Yeah. Odds and lights going out. Like the Harbaugh Super Bowl. Well, in Seattle, I don't know if you saw the comments earlier. Seattle's having
I did have some power outage.
Yeah, Seattle's having some major power outage. I actually Googled it. Yeah, they're having some major problems right now. I don't know why, but we can maybe guess why. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. This is in LA, so it's same coast. So
you're also going to get a huge Baltimore fan base there.
You think? Baltimore is that big of a fan base?
I think Baltimore fans travel.
You think? I don't know. I thought about that. I was wondering. I don't know.
Not like Pittsburgh. It's not going to be like Pittsburgh or Dallas or Denver or Green Bay.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a big Baltimore crowd. Okay. I think you're going to see a lot of purple.
Okay. Well, we saw last year. The Ravens played at the Chargers in a night game too. I think it was Sunday night game. But yeah, that Charger team was far worse than this one. So Lamar's playing the Rams, so I think it's an NFC team. That's true. All right, guys, that's about it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. Thank you especially for Drew Fasho's wife for the $9.99 super chat. John Sanders for 411 and Justin Trot for 415. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for keeping the show going. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. Evan, any final thoughts here or anything else?
Yeah, we didn't mention this before, but I saw you posted this. We played Dallas under 5.5 wins this week. That was a bet we took last night. And I think that's a great bet. I look at Dallas for the season. I mean, they're going to be favored in 2 more games. So obviously, right now, where they have 3 wins. Mm-hmm. They have 3 wins now, 3-7. They'll be favored. They're already favored next week, Thanksgiving against the Giants. So call that game a toss-up, right? Where's my Dallas schedule? They certainly could lose, and then they play Carolina. Right now, I have Dallas and Carolina tied for worst in the league. So that'll be another, call it a pick-em game. I mean, if they're favored or dogs by 1 or 2 points. So those are the 2 quote-unquote winnable games that Dallas has left. They theoretically have to win both of those games. And then in order to lose the under 5.5, you would need Dallas to either beat Washington as a 10-point underdog, Cincinnati, they'll be at least a 7-point underdog, 6.5, 7. But I still think the market's going to adjust every week. Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, who will need the game. That's another – that's a Sunday night football game. I guess that's going to be flexed. That'll for sure be flexed. So that won't be a Sunday night football game. Then they play at Philly and Washington again, teams that will need – all 3 of those teams, Tampa, Philly, and Washington, will need the games for playoff contention. I can't see Dallas being underdogs by less than 7 in any of those games. So in order to lose the under 5.5, you'll need them to win both of the coin flip games and have an upset somewhere else. So that's something that I would look to play now. FanDuel, it's like -14 on FanDuel. We played that the other night, 5.5 wins. And I see somebody asked about teasers this week. Again, I don't like the teasers. There's a lot of home dogs. If you believe like I believe that there's a regression to dogs in general, this could be a week where you get a lot of dogs. A lot of that's my guess. All these home dog, even though I'm on the Ravens and the Eagles as road favorites, teams like the Giants, the Raiders, the Bears, the Panthers, the Colts, the Browns. This could be a rough week for people who just want to lay money line parlays. But I don't see a lot of teaser potential here. I certainly wouldn't be teasing, teams like Washington down to 3. I would just lay the 10. I wouldn't tease Miami. I wouldn't tease the Lions. We talked about those games liking the points. And I don't see any of those if you like the Niners getting 8.5, I don't. I play that game live. I don't see a lot of teaser candidates. What do you think about teasers?
I was looking at Houston and San Francisco. Houston down to -1.5.
Yeah, Houston is probably the only one here that I would really lean towards.
Yeah. I don't. Jesse's saying Detroit and San Francisco. I don't like Detroit this week. It's a horrible spot. The Colts are a live dog. I think the Colts win this game.
I think so too.
Yeah. Texans, I think, have a better chance to win. So I would definitely go.
You can go plug into the apps. Like, what would a moneyline parlay pay for Washington, Houston, and dare I say Kansas City? It's not like Kansas City's going to lose.
No.
So if you take those 3, is there value there? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah. So I'll go. Like I said, Houston -1.5 and San Francisco +8.5. If Houston gets the cover at -1.5, then you can try to bet Green Bay -2.5 and try to get the middle. Green Bay -2.5, San Francisco +8.5. That's what I would do. If the Chargers fall to 2.5, I like the Chargers up to 8.5. But we're getting 3 now, so no need to do that.
If you put in Houston, Kansas City, Washington moneyline parlay, it pays -150 on FanDuel, and I just don't like those.
Yeah,
I don't think there's no real value for that.
Yeah, -152. He says, yeah. So I hope that answered your question, Jesse. So, all right, guys. Yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Dallas under 5.5.
Yeah. Dallas under Dallas
Washington
under 5.5
all
wins.
game live -17, 20, whatever Walt says, +480. There you go.
Yeah, get under the touchdown key numbers -13.5, -20.5. Do those even maybe even -27.5 if they offer it. I'm gonna see if they do that. So I will be betting those for sure. Not sure about the 27.5, but definitely the 13 and the 13.5 and the 20.5. So all right, guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Kenny's gonna be back. He's back from his 2-week hiatus. We haven't talked to him since election night. So we're going to see what he's been up to and see what he thinks about the fantasy stuff. So get your fantasy questions ready for tomorrow night. Then Thursday, we're going to have Andy Isco back for our Thursday Thoughts. And then hopefully Tom settles his internet connection for the Saturday show because he had trouble connecting on Saturday. So, yeah, full week of shows this week. Have a great night, guys. Evan, as always, love doing the show with you. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.